We're here. We're good. Hold on. Let me. I think we're good. Let me just check real quick. Um. Oh, is this coming through? Okay, hold on. I'm trying to check to see if it's all coming through. Um. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Let's check. We're good. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Let's
Good.
see.
Let's check. We're good. Hello. Hello. All right. Good. All right. Great. Awesome. This is good. Okay. All right. So I figured we'll watch the interview here. I have to say though that hold on, let me see if I could let me see if I do this a little bit. Is that better? You see the stream? Oh, it didn't work? Oh, there it is. Is that better to kind of bring it in closer? Oh no. Where are we? This is 100. And then might be a little better, right? Right? No? All right, we'll keep it at that. Let's go back to Let me see. Go back to 100. I'm just checking to see where the video should be. Yeah. Oh, we'll just keep it original. Right? Why mess with anything? Okay. Alrighty. Let me just check to see if you guys can see me on Twitter. So let's see if this is working on Twitter. Let's see if this is working on Twitter. Check.
Send.
Alrighty. Okay. So, like I said, we're gonna look at the interview. We're gonna watch it together. I'm gonna make commentary along the way. I just want to do a little prologue real quick. I've watched Alex since about 2007, and he's probably the one person I've watched consistently for that long. Someone like a Joe Rogan, I stopped. I kind of fell out of watching regularly and only watched like certain shows. But kind of like on a regular basis, I've been going with Alex for over a decade. But in the last couple like year or so, there's been a lot of issues, and I've written about it a little bit recently, thinking he's been as a gambit captured by the neo-Straussian fascists, typified by people like Peter Thiel and Mensis Mulbug, Curtis Yarving, Elon Musk, of course, inter alios, right? So, given that, I noticed that there's a certain fee there, but regardless of the fact, I believe it's a gambit on Alex's part, and that he is that he once said a while ago that he doesn't care if America in the future is mostly brown or any other color, because he says as long as they act American, and this is how I feel. I don't believe America is inherently or essentially a white country. I think white is not even a ethnicity as much as it's a label for who is part of society and who's not. And this is easily shown by how whiteness was only confined to a small number of people from, Anglo-Saxon, maybe a little Dutch, and people like Germans or Italians were not seen as white. And yet over time they became white. And so that shows that this isn't really an ethnicity as much as it's a status in society. So regardless of the fact, when I see people say, "Oh, I gotta protect my white heritage," like it's cringe. It's one thing to say Italian heritage or English heritage or German heritage, but in order to say white, it doesn't work. And anyway, so I've been really hammering against the ethno-nationalist sentiment that's been rising since Biden's presidency and before, but really has come to a head now. And so I see Alex is always kind of countering that, although, as he might say, what was it, kissing goblins, gratiating goblins, whatever, right? Like, he's doing that, but I still have hope in him. I really love the guy. He gave me a lot of inspiration in some of the lowest points of my life. And so Tucker, on the other hand, I see him as a shill. I mean, you have this, you have Bill O'Reilly basically get taken out immediately after Trump gets in on the most spooky, sexual scandal, which is it's always a go-to for intel agents to get them out of there. And who replaces it is Tucker. Tucker's first season or two is showing the map, the electoral map of all the wins that Trump got, and then just kind of over time he just stops talking about Tucker and starts going on this ethno-nationalist route, subtly, right? But essentially it's there. And so I see him as someone who's trying to, as basically an agent, trying to co-opt the MAGA movement to bring it towards a more ethno-nationalist level. And I think this also has to do with the fact that Trump, in his own gambit, relied upon the flyover country, the sentiment, the resentment of flyover country, and that basically came with nativism attached to it. And I don't think Trump truly understood that at first, but I think ultimately, we're all here together, and we're all here to learn together. So, I have hope for this country. I have hope for relations between people, and I think Alex is a big part of that. He may not be the most accurate person in journalism, but he is definitely like a carnival barker, trying to get you into the tent, the tent where where all the stuff is. So it's for all his used car salesman like attitudes and predicament. He is though bringing people closer to the truth, even if his expression of it isn't always the most accurate or consistent. Anyway, so we're gonna watch. I'm gonna comment, and hopefully we'll have some fun and enjoy ourselves a bit. So let's begin.
We're here with the world's most dangerous man, the most censored man in the English language. But honestly, when you get him in front of an outhouse in the woods, he doesn't seem so dangerous.
So fancy outhouse.
We have a ruling class in the United States defined
So fancy outhouse.
by its hatreds.
So fancy outhouse.
Not its loves, not its hopes, but by its hatreds. They hate all by its kinds of
So
people,
fancy
not
outhouse.
its loves, not its hopes, the bitter clingers, America's entire blue-collar population, the unfashionable people. They're hated by the people who run our country. But no one is hated more by them than a man called Alex Jones. Alex Jones is the single most censored man in all American history. He was the first media figure in our history to be completely erased in one day, deplatformed. Alex Jones was deplatformed before it was a common term. And not just deplatformed, sued, attacked. They attempted to criminally charge him. What did Alex Jones do wrong? Alex Jones didn't rape anybody. He didn't loot Macy's. He didn't burn a police station. He didn't invent a fake cryptocurrency and loot pension funds. He didn't start a pointless war that made this country poorer and more disorganized. He didn't open the southern border. No, Alex Jones had opinions that deeply rattled the people who run America. In fact, rattled a lot of us. And I'll just confess that I first heard of Alex Jones when he questioned the official story behind 9/11. And I, speaking for myself, was deeply offended by this. I didn't take any time to find out what he was saying, but I was bothered by the idea that this defining event in American history, which changed the life of everyone who lived here then.
Listen, guys, Tucker wasn't a little kid when he first interviewed David Ray Griffin or Alex Jones back when he was on MSNBC. He's telling you that he interviewed people and said they were wrong, but never even took the time to actually read them or understand their point of view. So, if you're a guy in your 30s and you're making that mistake, he's not 17, so that's ridiculous that, so I'm just saying is hold him at arm's length. I know, yeah, there's going to be turnovers. There's going to be people from the establishment coming over. I get that, Alex, but you got to keep these people at arm's length. Now, with that said, I know Alex attaches himself to help the audience, bring in more money and stuff because it shows, hey, look, I'm making a difference. I'm making a difference. But Alex has said, though, like if you have perfect controlled opposition, it'll be someone like a Tulsi Gabbard or a Tucker Carlson. Regardless, though, just hold him at arm's length. Stop saying that he's going to be the vice president, please. Trump is going to pick someone who's going to be not someone that outshines him, right? Remember the laws of power? The first law, right, is do not outshine the master. And so you cannot have a personality that is on par with Trump's. It has to be someone like a Pence, where it's like kind of, ostensibly loyal and mild-mannered, because you just can't. It'll be too much of a back and forth. You really have to allow Trump to be the figurehead there. But regardless, though, this is his dad was in the CIA. He tried to be in the CIA. He actually amended this a couple days ago. First time I've heard him say that. And just think, don't trust him 100%. Again, I may be wrong. He may turn out to be a true patriot, but I think he's part of this neo-fascist, neo-Straussian fascism movement. Basically, the Peter Thiels of the world. They want to make the situation so that America is essentially like Singapore. They want to get rid of like the federal government and have kind of like dictatorships or quasi-dictatorships. And the idea from there is something called dynamic geographies, that they believe that if you don't like your dictator in one nation, you could go to another nation and have another dictator, which is ridiculous when you think of dictators are not going to allow people to just leave, especially if it's like masses of their population. They need people. So it's ridiculous to think that a dictator would leave. Even if it was written into their constitution or whatever, they would find some emergency to get rid of it. So that's his goal there. That's when he keeps saying like, focus only on the local. No. You got to focus on both the local and the federal. But you say, why do I need to focus on the federal when I already have the local? The federal government is here for one thing and one thing only. It is that which all citizens share. The states existed before the country, and so all citizens don't share. But what all citizens have in common, though, is the federal government. Now, the federal government, as Madison intended, was there to quell and mitigate the biases and what's the word he used? Not just biases, but the I can't remember the word right now. The biases and the I think starts with an I. I'm not getting it right now, but anyway, basically they're the things that make them Jesus Christ. Wow, I've said the word a million times and I can't remember it. But yeah, so essentially it's there to mitigate or to counter the biases or the I'm upset. I'm gonna look this up real quick because I have to know this word. This is hold on a second. Hold on. Prejudice. I think so. Why do I like in my head? It's like it starts with an I. No, yeah, prejudices. Okay, fine, prejudices. Yeah, okay, fine. It was prejudice, I guess. Oh, okay, start with it. Okay, fine. We'll say prejudices. Anyway, so to basically counter those, and so what the government's there is to do is to counter those prejudices as they interfere with the rights of every individual citizen. So essentially, the federal government is there to protect the civil rights of citizens. State governments are there to do everything else. Essentially, they're there to keep the lights on, have the roads, hospitals, what have you, just police. That's what they're for. But when it comes to those constitutional, God-given rights, the federal government is there to protect them, to counter the local prejudices of constituencies. And that's the intention of the man who created the federal government in terms of structuring it, which Madison, the father of the Constitution. So the point isn't to get rid of the federal government. It's only to ensure that we know what the federal government is there for and keep it in line with its goals, with it, what its intentions are. So we know that, okay, this is what the federal government is responsible for, but this is what it's not responsible for, and always keeping that divide clear to everybody. That's the way forward, not to get rid of things, because getting rid of them doesn't address how they came to exist in the first place or how they came to fruition. Instead, we need to understand what they're for and keep them according to that. Keep them, to check them, make sure they stay in that, to make sure they stay in their lane. So I know I talk so much, but let's go on.
Then might not actually have unfolded as we were told it did. And that possibility was too destabilizing. And I remember feeling resentment toward Alex Jones for saying that. But several years later, I wound up in Austin, Texas, and through a chain of circumstances, wound up meeting Alex Jones. And I learned what everyone who has met him now knows, which is Alex Jones is not a crazy person. Alex Jones has said pretty far out things on TV from time to time. Not that far out. He hasn't said men can become women or Ukraine is a democracy, but within the bounds of, say, cable news, pretty far out. But fundamentally, Alex Jones is right about a lot of things. And in fact, that's why they don't like him. Alex Jones has an uncanny, really an amazing ability to predict events before they happen. He has called it, and he's done it on tape again and again, to the point where it's a meme on the internet. Alex Jones, prophet, not conspiracy nut, prophet. But when you dig into Alex Jones's predictions, they are so spot on that it's remarkable. How does he do this? We're guessing there's a kind of...
Interject real quick here. Yes, Alex, in a way, predicted 9/11, but know that Trump also did. Anyone who was paying attention to geopolitics at the time could have easily geared... Hold on, I want to hear this. Anyone who was paying attention to the politics will know that Osama bin Laden was being put on the burner. Like, he was in the news cycles. You just had the embassy bombings, which were by him. And so anybody with two brain cells to rub together was able to see that. So I'm not trying to take this away, but Alex is not a predictor as much as he is a observer and keen observer, able to, connect dots. But no, he's not someone who could see into the future. And I want to call him a prophet, because prophet is specifically someone who warns people about what God wants and what would happen if they don't do that. He's more, like I said, more like just a pundit in a way. Just to put a little tidbit, I would like to become the intellectual Alex Jones. I don't say that because it's true.
Kind of spiritual sensitivity to Alex Jones. Maybe that's his secret. He was displaying this years before the average person in this country even thought about matters like that. Now it's pretty obvious to most people that the current war going on in this country is taking place in ways you can't see it most of the time. But 10 years ago, people were not thinking that way. Alex Jones was. And so we thought it'd be interesting to sit down and talk to Alex Jones, the man. He joins us now in our studio. Alex Jones, thank you
Wow, Tucker, it's great to be here. Amazing studios, amazing. I mean it, amazing people, and this is really going to be, I think, a historic.
Alex Jones is so differential. He is utterly differential. The one time that he wasn't was with Kanye West talking about, But I mean, he is differential, man. That's why it's a genuine cat. It really is. I just hope you don't fall into this, man.
Interview. So thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really grateful to be able to do it. And it's one of the great blessings of my life and of my job is that I've been able to meet people that I've had preconceptions about and sometimes find those preconceptions bolstered and in other cases demolished. And you're definitely in the second category. So I want, for people who've made it this far, the people around the country have really succeeded in making you disreputable. And the whole point, of course, is people won't listen to you. So we thought it'd be interesting to start with a series of on-tape predictions that you made, some of which are so precise and so prescient that it makes the hair on my arms stand up. And I'm being sincere.
These are observations. Don't make this into some woo. Alex Jones is not a clairvoyant. He's just someone who's looking at the data and expressing honesty about it. I just want to put this in real quick. This is how the CIA and all these other groups work today. They can't censor anymore because it doesn't work very well, as you can see. So what do they do now? They do something what I call adding gloss. So basically, because they can't control who you see, they want to control how you think about what you see. So they'll, by using what I call gloss, they basically, will have a situation and just say, well, and put a spin on it. And that spin then becomes a lens that the person sees it through and ultimately affecting their opinion or their observations in the direction of the manipulation. And so this happens a lot, and it's a telltale sign of intel assets and agents that they always will have a situation and then give a spin on it, an interpretation on it, and be always stern about it to put that forward. Like, this is what's happening. This is what he meant to say. This is how it's happening. This is what's going on. Let's keep that in mind.
Here, and our viewers are about to see what I'm talking about. Here is a list of things that you called ahead of time.
By the middle of September, that the new policy's being written, you will all have to wear masks again, and so will airport employees.
It's happening. Mask mandates are officially back.
We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun, or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s,
this group and its leader, a person named Osama bin Laden,
he's the boogeyman they need.
We're looking at a giant war in February right now. I predict the Russians are going to roll in. They're already there. They're going to roll in.
With attacks across Ukraine, which is the size of Texas.
It really was the Iraqis. That's just because they're getting ready to invade Iraq. And what a beautiful setup.
Those 9/11 clips are crazy. I'm actually bothered by the precision of them. I'm not accusing you of being behind 9/11. But how could you, in July of 2001, call that? You said they're going to have airliners fly into the World Trade Center and they're going to blame a guy called Osama bin Laden. Now, leaving aside what actually happened, how could you have known that?
Well, in the longer clips, because it's a multi-hour show from July 25th, 2001, I specifically walked through all the reasons, and I knew that they were hyping up that we were about to be hit by Osama bin Laden. I knew that the World Trade Center had been attacked the first time and that the Fed's been involved helping cook the bomb and allowing it to go forward. And I just saw a lot of the pre-programming that was happening in the media, because they were on the news saying, life's about to change in America. And I was reading what the RAND Corporation was saying and what the Pentagon was putting out. And I read the PNAC document from a year before, Rebuilding America's Defenses, that Dick Cheney had helped write. And it said we need a Pearl Harbor event on the American homeland to be able to bring in this police state and this control and then expand the American empire worldwide. So hundreds of pieces of data went into that prediction.
But terrorists are going to hit the World Trade Center in July of 2001. I lived in the United States.
Yeah, one of the FEMA documents, which is shown in James Corbett's brilliant 5-minute expose on the official story called 9/11: A Conspiracy Theory. And there he shows that one of the FEMA documents from late 90s had the trade towers in crosshairs. And so again, this is not, by all means, this should have been prevented, and yet it wasn't. But you see Alex in his great way, he's just trying to say, hey, I'm not clairvoyant, this is just data, which really in a way makes Tucker embarrassed, I bet, because you're basically saying, no, there's nothing special about me. I just looked at what was there, the writing on the wall. And it's like, well, as a journalist, you should have been able to do the same thing, Tucker, but you didn't because you were an alcoholic and being controlled. Maybe you grew a conscience now. I don't believe it, but regardless. And I just want to say this real quick. Tucker's being reintroduced now to the world under the guise of Musk and his whole platform. When Alex first went on the No Agenda, or I'm sorry, when the Adam Curry from the No Agenda show first went on Alex's show back in like 2017 and 2018. The following No Agenda episode, tons of donations came in, and they were all happy about it. But then the following show, Curry says, "I can't go back. I got a tongue lashing. I got scolded. I can't." And so you think, wait a minute, I thought you did this value for value because you thought it would free you from, having being controlled that way. And yet you're just being controlled by your top donors. So obviously they told him, don't go back on the show. Now, Alex gets caught in trouble with the courts, is owed, or is made to owe $1.5 billion. And maybe in that situation, he became compromised because he had to survive, I guess. And so whatever the case, Alex hasn't changed much since then in terms of his views, but now they're reintroducing him under the guise of Musk and his platform. And Tucker is just a piece of that. So Alex is being put through something right now. And I know he knows that. But let's just pray and hope that he keeps his integrity and that this gambit works out. There's no guarantee, though. Let's move on, or let's continue.
States then, that was the last thing on my mind. And I lived in Washington. I know the guys who wrote the PNAC document because I shared an office with them. So I was more informed than the average person. And that was the last thing that crossed my mind in the summer of 2001. Like everyone else, I thought it was a Cessna. But how convinced were you that this was going to happen?
I was completely convinced. In fact, in the full clip that's online, you can find it on Twitter and other places, it has been removed.
Cheers, everybody.
I explained to people that they need to call the White House and tell the White House, we know if you allow these attacks that you're basically allowing it to happen. And it was similar to all the data we had when
you said that on your show?
On my show. And I gave the number out so people could actually call the White House. And then going back to October of last year.
Tucker didn't even watch the full. He didn't even watch the full clip, man. He didn't even watch the full clip, the full minute clip. I mean, if you watch the minute clip, he literally says, here's the White House number, call. And he's just there like, what? I mean, this guy, man, I'm telling you, they're doing something to Alex right now. He's like the anti-Taylor Swift. Who knows? No, but they're doing something, man. This is crazy, man. This is crazy.
When the Russians went into Ukraine, I specifically said I think they'll go in by the end of February, and there was a lot of data that went into that. And then they specifically did go in on February 24th. And so I was able to make that prediction as well. But there was a lot of data and information that went into it.
Sure. I'm just, for the record, I miscalled that completely. I didn't think they were going to do it. You were right. I was wrong, not for the first time. But the 9/11 thing, I remember that really well. Nobody was thinking like that. So you called it in public on tape. Did the 9/11 Commission, so if I'm the FBI and I'm investigating 9/11, you're like the first guy I would call because you're the only person who said that out loud. Did they call you?
No, they didn't. But my most accurate prediction, going back over a decade, was
Look, there were three publishers, three people who published work that first asked about 9/11. That was first was Thierry Masson, France. He wrote the he wrote the book Painful Questions. And then you have guy who wrote out of Stanford the Terror Timeline, Paul Thompson. And then finally, you have a man, I believe he's a Muslim reporter or otherwise a Middle Eastern name. I can't remember, but he also produced some material. And those three guys all three are cited by David Ray Griffin in his monumental book, New Pearl Harbor, published in 2004. And by the way, Alex interviewed, the interviews that Tucker made about 9/11 were in like 2005 and 6. Tucker actually interviewed David Ray Griffin. So, it's just, this guy is lying, man. If he really read this stuff, he would know. But he didn't. Or he did, and he wants to, play plausible deniability. Which is powerful weapon, by the way, plausible deniability. So you can't prove whether someone really thought the other thing. I didn't see it. I walked it. I don't know. I didn't see that in the room. I was looking at my shoes. Can't show. But call it out when you see it, because it's bullshit.
When I read the Rockefeller Foundation Operation Lockstep, and they described using a virus to bring in world government, to bring in a world medical ID, that they would then build the social credit score off of, and that they would make people wear masks for fear, and that they would shut down sporting events and things like that, and basically phase in this new tyranny. So I was also able to specifically make that prediction over and over and over again, because I was going off their own battle plans.
Are you the only person in media who actually reads these reports?
I don't think a lot of people do read them, but I do read them. I'm currently reading MIT reports from their top counsels, Pentagon reports. They have a working group called the Mad Scientist Group at the Pentagon that works with MIT. And if you go watch their hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long meetings they have on YouTube with all the tops, we're talking hundreds of top scientists, they admit that they're building a post-human world, that soon everyone's going to be mind controlled, that they're going to put smart dust in our food that they can electromagnetically control. And they just lay it all out right there. And I've learned what these people said in the 50s they would do were done by the 70s. What they said their plan was in the 70s for the 90s, they got done. And then when they had their Agenda 21 in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, the big UN summit, they described everything they would do up until the year 2000, and they got almost all of that done. And now they've got Agenda 2030, and we're going to ban your gas stoves. We're going to ban beef. We're going to ban single-family dwellings. We're going to ban private ownership of cars. We're going to do all this, and now you see them rolling it all out. So I'm not really making predictions in these high-level World Economic Forum and other large think tank groups. They are laying out the future, and they're high priests of the World Economic Forum. That's a consortium of all these groups. Yuval Noah Harari, you go read his quotes. The future's not human. The human era is over. The public is useless. This is a very anti-human system. So that's how I'm able to make predictions, because they've given us a roadmap. They tell us where they want to take us. And so when the public wakes up, we push back on some of it, but they always come back. And so I'm just following the trajectory of where they say they want to take us. And there were a lot of white papers, not just the PNAC document from 2000, a year before 9/11, where they describe we really need big terror attacks. We really need Pearl Harbor events to get Americans to give up their
Yeah, so the actual quote is essentially saying that they want full spectrum dominance in land, sea, air, and internet, and that such a transformation of the military to that kind of controlling uh, uh, way they said would not have happened um, unless we get attacked in a new Pearl Harbor. So the actual quote is hold on. Actually, I want to read you guys the quote because it's so damning. Oh, got it right here. Got it right here. Right here. Right here, baby. All right. Further the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and cataclysmic event. I'm sorry, cataclysm. Just do it over again. Do it live. Further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, albeit some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. Domestic policies and industrial policy will shape the pace and content of transformation as much as the requirements of current missions. Or no, I guess missions. Yeah, maybe my vision's failing. But anyway, so you see, they needed essentially a new Pearl Harbor, some event where we get attacked again by a foreign body, and that catalyzing us to want to. Because if you remember in World War II, we were very isolationist. We wanted nothing to do with Europe and Japan, and that rocked us out of it because now we were attacked and now we were in, and so they're basically saying we need that. And they wrote that in September of 2000. Actually, I think it's October, but whatever. This is such a nitpicky point. But, so essentially a year before 9/11 happened. Now, I want to be very clear for all the people that are going to be like, yeah. I am not saying this is proof that they did 9/11. That is not the argument. That is not the contention. The real point here is that this demonstrates that they would have a interest in 9/11, in an event like 9/11 happening. That would be something they would like to happen. That's something that their interests are in, right? So again, that doesn't give res menta, but that gives Cubono, who would benefit from that. And so you would show this as basically, oh no, I'm sorry, it is the res menta. But anyway, so that's the actual quote, and it's so damning. A new Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
Rights. I mean, take what just happened in Israel. Totally tragic. My heart goes out to all that been killed or lost loved ones or been injured. But there's no way that one of the best intelligence agencies in the world didn't know that was coming. The massive buildup, the 5,000 missiles, the paragliding attacks, all of that, and so there was clearly a stand down there. And now the West will take more of the people's rights. Israel will be able to crack down and take more of their people's rights, which is a big debate over there. Hamas is being funded by Hezbollah, which is Iran. We just had Biden.
The government admitted that they 9/11 happened not because they didn't see what was going on, but because, as they say, it was like a needle in a haystack, that there was all this intelligence, and so it was just kind of buried, even though we had the intelligence of it. And so their reaction to that was to make the government bigger, to make the haystack bigger. I mean, think about that. They're saying like, "Oh, we didn't see this because it was such a flood of information. It got lost in the chaos." Okay, what's your solution? Making the stream bigger. I mean, what? And I tweeted this there, and I retweeted it a little while ago, that 9/11 is the time when America was attacked for freedom, for their freedoms. Americans were attacked for their freedoms, yet the government's response was to take away our freedoms, or take away some of our freedoms. I mean, what? I mean, who's attacking us really now, right? I mean, it's obvious, people. It's obvious. And look, I don't want to go into 9/11. You know, on this channel, I've gone into it very well. I'm still planning a video where I'm going to go into the peer-reviewed articles, like stuff that's like even published in like, you know, top tier journals and you know, even like IR stuff, like international relations, like articles on 9/11, on 9/11 truth. I mean, you know, I'm just, you know, this is stuff that blow your freaking mind. You're like, wow, there's real evidence for this, and they just don't want you to see it, you know. And I'm gonna show it. So, but let's go back to Jones.
A month ago, gives $6 billion to Iran. And now the mullahs are bragging that they were behind the attack, Hezbollah funding Hamas. So really, those aren't even predictions. It's clear that Hezbollah and Hamas have tens of thousands of men and women as sleeper cells that are, quote, other than Mexican, that the Border Patrol list every month, tens of thousands coming across the Texas and Arizona and California sectors. And it's an easy equation to predict that there's a wide probability that Hezbollah and Hamas at some point are going to attack sports stadiums. They're going to attack colleges. They're going to attack synagogues. They're going to shoot up mass gatherings if they're given the order by Iran, if we go to war with Iran. And then when this happens, our government won't get in trouble for dissolving the border and letting these people come in. Just like on 9/11, our government clearly had prior knowledge. There was clearly a major stand down that went on. And the government got more power, more control. And now they're not pointing the Homeland Security apparatus at the Russians like they did in the Cold War or the Islamists after 9/11. Now they admit that their main focus is Christian conservatives and the bitter clingers and the people that live in rural America that quote, white people, I mean, it says that in the report, are the main terror threat. And so this whole apparatus of the war on terror it has now been turned inwardly against the people, not just here, but also in Europe, where if someone criticizes transgenderism in the UK, they come to their house and arrest them. If a journalist does that, they come to their house and arrest them. If somebody says, I think these surveillance cameras should start getting cut down, they come to their house and they arrest them for their free speech. And so this is a global movement by the mega corporations, by the BlackRocks and the State Streets and the Vanguards that control 80+% of world wealth to control our behavior. And Larry Fink of BlackRock has said that at the Davos Group repeatedly. We're going to use our control over all this finance and this global social credit score we're rolling out to control people's behavior. So
Yes, and this is going to be done in the guise of paternalism, which I've been writing about and researching on extensively for the last couple of years. And I want to just share real quick what the oligarchic agenda is. Let me just pull up the. Oh, I got to look it up this way. Hold on. Here it is. So, now, yeah, you guys can't see that, but so I have a couple here. So first is that they want to change the economy from one controlled by markets to one controlled by industry. So they want to basically bring back the guild, you know, so that it doesn't matter where, you know, so you can't vote with your dollar anymore. It's just the industry is going to tell you, you know, what changes they're going to make and the things they want to do. You're going to have no control over it. Then they want to undermine national sovereignty. They call the nation-state system, where, you know, each country can do what it wants for the most part. They call that the Westphalian system, which goes back to the Treaty of Westphalia or Phalia, whatever, which is a place in Germany where I think like in the 16th or 17th century, these people came together and say, okay, we're going to allow that, you know, because they were bickering so much about religion and other things. They say, okay, we're going to allow each state to you know, govern its own affairs and not have to govern, you know, and care. So you don't care about your neighbor, essentially. You just focus on your country. And so they want to get rid of that. They want to vertically integrate the economy. We saw that during COVID. And they want to have surveillance of all transactions between individuals. So whether you're talking to someone or you're buying something, they want every transaction to be in a ledger that they can control. And then use that to predict your behavior and very accurately, might I say, and control you, otherwise control you. You know. They want to rebrand autocracy as governed by bureaucracy. So they want to bring back despotism, but instead of having it centered on like a despot, they want like a bureaucratic system to be the despot, so that it's not one person making the crazy decisions. No, it's a group that we came to this not by consensus, but by bureaucratic fiat, and so they want essentially governance of bureaucratic decision making, and basically saying that that is the only way you could have growth. That tying that, so they're saying if you have any other system that's, let's say, like freedom, that is going to lead to less growth. And so, by means of self-survival, we have to go with autocracy, a bureaucratic autocracy. And that's what they're pushing there. And they want not rule by patrimonialism, which is basically individual figures. This is why they hate Trump so much. Trump's not a dictator, but he's an individual, and he makes his own decisions. He's not, he does things unilaterally in his sphere. He's not going to like a council and voting and all these. No, it's just him making decisions like natural human beings, and they don't want that. They want instead this patina of some kind of bureaucratic structure that makes it all more fair or something. And so that's another thing they're doing. They want to institute two things necessarily. One is called new public management. Now, new public management is essentially when we see like the public-private partnerships. Every time you hear that, that's this new public management, which is basically essentially the way you should manage public affairs or public administration. What the government does in the social world, that should be outsourced, so to speak, to private companies. So let's say, for instance, instead of the utility water company being not the utility, but the let's say let's say like the police, right? That instead of the police being a government agency, instead it's essentially a private security firm that is paid by the government, and so you see, so they call that public-private partnership, and you can see the detriment there, right? Because that leads to secrecy and bureaucracy and more and less rights, and anyway. And then the other thing, which is even worse, is called new public governance. And this is, when I read this, and there's a short YouTube video on it, so you might be able to hear this. But when I read this, man, I couldn't believe it. They said that the role of government has one role, and that is to merely convince the people that the state, that the government is legitimate. That's it. They say the rest handles itself, so that the government's only role with the public is to act as PR, like basically to make them give themselves good PR. And this is reminiscent of the public sphere, or what could have been called the public sphere back in feudal times, with the lords and the kings and stuff. And back then, the only thing that was a public sphere was essentially just a stage for the royalty to announce their royalness and rule over the rest of the people. And with this new public governance, new public this is essentially a reversion back to that. But instead of the royals showing their legitimacy, it's the state saying, look, we rule over you because we are fit to, and this is the way things are, and the divine right of kings and genetics or whatever, right? But but in the way of bureaucracies. And so that's what they're going to go for there. I mean, seriously, when I heard that, I was like, wait, the whole role of the government is to give itself good PR. That's it. That's the only thing it's responsible for, is to make sure that the people think that it's not to make the people agree with what it's doing. No. To make the people think that, well, that's their place. That's who they are. That's what, that's natural, that they are in that position and I'm not. That's what legitimacy means. It doesn't mean acceptance. It just means that, you may not like something, but that's its place. That's where it belongs. And so I mean, can you believe that? I mean, seriously, the only role of the government is to make itself look legitimate. I mean, shit. I said refeudalization, right? This is the retooling of the public sphere to make it a mere prop of appearance of the government's legitimacy, as I said before, akin to the feudal times when proto-public sphere served merely as a megaphone for the nobilities to display their status and power to everybody. See, I wrote that out. I just read it again. Replace representative politicians with bureaucratic expertise. I literally have a couple of handbooks on democracy versus expertise, stuff that's been published in the last year or so. I mean, this is hot stuff in the in the literature in the academic world, and you guys should know about this, and everyone should know about this, because all the stuff Alex Jones talks about this, they use different words and things, so you can't see it right away, but when you know what the words mean, and you realize shit. I mean, think about the whole legitimacy thing. I mean, that's just because they couch it in so many syllables, that it doesn't make us we look past it and stuff. Well, I'm here to be the fucking megaphone or the cheerleader or whatever for this. Yeah, and then finally, they want to modify all our economic transactions, and you see this now, where they want to get rid of products and replace everything with a service, so that everything you have, that you don't own anything, you just lease it, and you pay a fee on it every so, just like a cable service. But we're talking about things like your washing machine or your television, or just almost like you renting everything. And I mean, just if that's the case, that means you own nothing, and then that's where the whole World Economic Forum, you'll be happy and own nothing. That's what they mean there. That everything you own will not be owned. It'll be just something you rent for a while. And anyway, so enough with me. Let's get back to Jones.
So that's really what this is. And then they use the threat of global warming. They use the threat of a virus. They use the threat of radical Islam to take our rights. But we really are the target.
Even if by the way, none of that seems implausible at this point. I mean, just you're a measure of how the world has changed. If you'd said this to me 15 years ago, I'd have been like, someone's a crackpot and it's not me. And now after COVID, nothing you said seems crazy at all. I mean, you may be right, you may be wrong, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, obviously. But even if I disagree with what you just said, I would think that's pretty interesting. It's an interesting perspective. Why do you think you've committed no crime? You'd be in jail if you had. Why do you think they hate you so much?
Because I do read their documents and I do read their books, and we were effectively getting a lot of people in the military and the intelligence agencies who were compartmentalized and who tuned into my show and saw my films and read my books and things, and they clicked with it and said, wow, I see all this going on around me. He's not lying about it. And then I would give them other pieces that I discovered or my other guests discovered. And so it was giving them an operational awareness outside of their compartmentalization. And so we had massive success in the military, in the police, and in the intelligence agencies, not just here, but around the world. And so our penetration into those areas to help people expand their awareness that we're inside the government, inside corporations, was triggering a lot of whistleblowers, was triggering a lot of people not going along with the program. And so really my sin was decompartmentalization of the population.
When you got deplatformed, and to this day, no one has ever been more aggressively censored, I don't think, than you. I've apologized to you this in person before. I was in Labrador on a fishing trip and missed the entire thing. I was literally out of cell range. I didn't know what happened, but I got back and I read about it. I felt like it was a major moment in the history of the American media. I don't think anybody defended you when that happened. Anybody with any kind of audience.
For me, when Tim Cook admitted that he met on the weekend in August of 2017 with the other big tech heads, and they made the decision to curate, like it's a museum, and take me off. It was hundreds of platforms. I mean, it wasn't just all the big ones. It was everything from LinkedIn to our bank accounts being taken away to everything ensuing that week and over the next month. And I knew that I was a test case, and I wasn't taken off those platforms for any demonstrable reason. It was the questioning the school shooting thing that came later. They went and kind of dredged that up from my past, just questioning it a few times, blew that up after I'd been deplatformed and said I was deplatformed for that. But if you check the record, I wasn't. And so once they deplatformed me, it made the show in ways only get bigger, with people actually going to Infowars.com and finding me on local radio stations and things. So then they panicked and said, okay, let's look at his record and create more of a reason that he's being taken off. So they took things out of context from 5-6 years before, blew them up as a current thing out of context, and deceptively reported on what I'd said to create a straw man argument to then facilitate the reason.
What's so crazy is if you asked just a cross-section of Americans who's responsible for the Sandy Hook massacre of kids at the school, no one remembers the name of the murderer.
Adam Lanza.
Okay, thank you. I didn't remember. Alex Jones. They effectively blamed you for a school shooting that you were not.
There was a guy, when Alex had his court case in Connecticut, there was a guy who yelled during, when Alex was giving a press conference. Literally, a guy yelled, Alex Jones is worse than Adam Lanza. And I was just like, what? Oh, maybe it was a fake, planted event. But I mean, looking at the person and seeing, I didn't get that. I got the sensation, the feeling that person was honest. It's just that's how powerful soft power is. American soft power did more to change more lives and nations than any military incursion could ever imagine, ever could. And it's that weapon of soft power was aimed at Donald Trump in 2016 and beyond, where every facet of it, all the celebrities, the media, the presentation, everything was geared towards attacking him on all levels. And that soft power was used as a weapon for the first time, like literally aimed at him. And so, especially with the celebrities and the movies and canceling him and all the announcements and boom, boom. It just aimed it like the Death Star ray, just boom. The way the Death Star ray has all those, spokes coming through and they all merge at the center. And it's the same fucking shit. But with movies and TV and music and, celebrities and it's scary, but it's horrible at the same time because you get people doing desperate shit. But let me keep on going.
Not president.
I have people come up to me in the parking lot. You can ask my security guy. He's been there when people walk up and go, "Why'd you kill those kids?" And then you go, "I didn't kill those kids." And they go, "Yeah, you did." And so that is what this has turned into. And this is bigger than me. I want people to understand something, that the mullahs in Iran and the Ayatollah are congratulating Hamas that just killed around 1,000 or more innocent Israelis, many of them women, children, disabled people, in a vicious, evil sneak attack. They are on there. Hezbollah and Hamas, mainly Hamas, but it's Hezbollah funding it out of Iran, are literally posting videos of them cutting people's heads off and killing children and massacring innocent people. They're allowed to have their Hezbollah accounts and their Hamas accounts. The Ayatollah is able to congratulate what these people done, and I am still banned. And I'm not mad at Elon Musk. I understand I've been so demonized with the general public. He's barely able to, keep Twitter going right now. I really appreciate what he's done. I admire him. I think he's done a lot of great work, and I see him moving in the right direction. So a lot of people attack Musk on Twitter. I trend all the time. Hey, if you're such an absolutist on free speech, bring back Alex Jones. I understand that if he did that, the ADL and others would really be able to probably shut down Twitter. So I understand that he needs to go through a process before he does that. So people get mad at Twitter for not.
Why the ADL? I'm not the world's expert on your career, but I know you. I've never heard you say a single anti-Semitic thing and an anti-Israel thing. Why would the ADL be against you? I don't think anyone's even called you an anti-Semite.
Well,
unless I'm missing something.
I mean, what goes on is the left forever called everybody a racist if you were just a conservative or pro Second Amendment or pro life or thought we ought to have a border. And that didn't work anymore to call people racist. And so the ADL gets all this big liberal donations. And so they go out and then police and take people's sponsors and target them just by the ADL calling up sponsors. Sponsors get scared and drop. And so that's what they've done to Elon Musk. They've been, they took over 50% of Twitter's North American and European advertising in just the last year, and bragged about it by saying he gives harbor to white supremacists, which he doesn't. But at the same time, white supremacists are ridiculous. They're goofy. Most of them are usually working for foundations and are basically actors. We're not supposed to say that, but there's many cases of that actually being the case, and that they're just LARPing that they're white supremacists. But let those clowns speak. Whatever happened to the ACLU that used to support the KKK marching through a town or publishing their own newspaper? I don't support the KKK. I think they're a joke. But if you take their rights, you've taken everybody's. But they're not even taking the rights of those people to post because they create fear and they get the ADL more funding. But if they can target an Alex Jones or an Elon Musk or a Tucker Carlson, then they're going after the real populist leaders that are bringing America together. And so what the left wants is to divide us all according to race, and to come out and say fundamentally with critical race theory that inherently being white is bad, and teaching 5-year-old white children they're inherently bad because they're white. That is wounding their brains and really creating racial division.
Why do people put up with that? I don't understand why. I mean, that's just, if you had told me.
I've been looking at the literature, critical theory, and all that stuff, and none of the mainstream orthodox literature says that whites are inherently bad. As I've written in a tweet, whiteness is a status in society, and essentially it's how much whiteness for an individual is how much they identify or see through the lens of that status in society. And so, there is something there, but they're not saying that. It's just what happens is, because these are high-level academic discussions being trickled down to policy, there's things lost in translation, and kind of like the way a picture has a higher resolution or lower. If you take that picture with a high resolution and make it a lower resolution, you're gonna, certain subtleties and differences and things are gonna be gone. You're not gonna notice them, and so as it trickles down, it becomes, white people are bad. So, I overall don't agree with it, but when you read these things, you realize that, there's some, and I know the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I get that, but things happen for a reason. And so you can't just cancel or deny something. You have to wrestle with it. You have to figure it out. And that doesn't mean you agree with it, but you have to figure it out. I mean, that's what people used to do in war and hunting. You're hunting deer, or you're having a war with someone. You get into their head. You try to understand things from their point of view. That doesn't mean now you join them or now you become the deer. No, you're using it to better understand them. And so in the same way, you got to understand why these people are saying these things. And when you understand it and at least make yourself fluent in it to a degree, you could converse in it and then expose its internal inconsistencies or hold it to its own standards that it neglects. But you can't do that if you don't engage. And so that's one of the reasons I'm not a populist. It's the same reason I'm not a reactionary. And Tucker a few years ago said the same thing, that populism is essentially a barometer for seeing how the society or the people feel on average. But populism as an ideology to adopt, but political ideology, is essentially, and I'm not saying Alex is this way because he's definitely not anti-intellectual, but it is anti-intellectual. Essentially, it tries to take away all forms of institution and to replace everything with meritocracy. I'm sorry, to replace what it believes are undemocratic institutions, and instead of like understanding how they're being used instead. And so what you have is you have people who believe that the institutions themselves are failing when it's the people who've run them and the fact that they've neglected them. Um, I mean, if you want to know why the left it seems to be in all these institutions, it's because the left grew them. It's the left came up with them. They created them. You know, FDR did a lot in government to put a whole, there's been a permanent left, um, bureaucracy of people who are essentially on the, Democrat side of things there since 1933, it's because FDR brought them in and they never left. And Eisenhower wasn't going to change it. That was one of the things he said he wasn't going to do. He wasn't going to get rid of those things. And so what you have to do is got to learn how to work with them or hold them accountable to their own standards. If you don't know them, then you're not going to know what their standards are, so you got to know what their standards are. And because the reason why you got to know that is because on paper, they have to cohere with the Constitution. And so even though they're not acting constitutionally, their mission statement has, or protocols make them do so. And so you have to hold them against that. So what I'm just trying to say here is that the whole critical theory stuff and all that, you got to learn how to engage with it and figure it out. Like, when they say, there's been discrimination of people with, people with funny sounding names get less resume hits, calls for interviews than names that sound more white or whatever. Instead of denying that, running away from that, you just say, well, look into that, and then you find out, well, there's such a thing called impression formation. And so basically the idea there is if someone sees something that they're not familiar with, they're going to see it more stereotypically because they don't know it very well. So they're going to see it in the most basic way, or in the most like putative or common way of seeing it, like what other people say about it. But when someone knows something very well, they see it very for its nuances, for its idiosyncrasies. It's for what makes it unique. And that's not, that has nothing to do with whether you like something or not. It just has to do with whether you're familiar. So if someone sees a name they're not familiar with, they're going to see it from more of a distance and more stereotypically. They're going to see it for its nuances. And again, that's not because of any value factor. That's just cognition. That just happens because your brain is trying to save energy, and it's not going to expend energy on things that it believes that it's, if you don't know much about something, you're not going to, your brain's going to hold back some energy because it's like, oh, okay, we don't know what this, so we're going to put this stereotype image on it versus, oh, we know this, and devote more energy to it. All truth is God's truth. That's how you could battle, and to destroy strongholds, like Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verses 3 to 5 or 6, and says we have these divine weapons that are intellectual, and they are to destroy the strongholds, or basically the worldviews or the arguments of people that block the light of God. And that our weapons are not earthly weapons of like swords and things, but they're ideas. But they cause the same kind of like damage in comparatively, because the Bible sees like an argument or a worldview or an attitude as a stronghold, and it keeps your will in a certain way. And so our weapons are able to destroy those so that people can be freed from them, and seek the truth. And see the truth. And when I first read that, I was just like, yeah, this is for me. this was written for me, right? Like, I mean, it's amazing Jesus and Bible and all that stuff. It's an amazing thing.
20 years ago, and I grew up in a world where judging people on the basis of their skin color was totally immoral, and I still believe that. But if you told me 20 years ago that we were going to live in a world where people get on TV and just be like, I hate white people, they're bad. No, it's totally fine. Like, why do people put up with that? Like, there should be zero tolerance for that. I don't get it.
The Democratic Party founded the KKK. And when the majority were whites in the South in some areas, they played the race card for political power. Now that the majority in most areas are not white, they're playing the good old-fashioned race card of tell whites, stand down, let people take over your society, your culture, give up your culture. It's embarrassing to be white. And then now it's flat out bad to be white. And the left's trying to convert all these minority groups that are now the majority in most areas into race-based systems because that is a very effective system.
But why do people put up with that? I mean, like if they were doing that to Malaysians or Filipinos or Hondurans, I would say you can't do that. You're not allowed to attack people on the basis of their race. I'm sorry, not in a country like this, because the country will fall apart and it's immoral.
I totally agree.
But nobody says anything. Well, I don't get it.
The reason they've done it is most of the enforcers of this are white liberal women, 45 or older, not
fair.
It's just a fact. And they're cucked husbands. And so to them...
Can I just say that the phrase cucked husbands is the best?
It really is true. So if you get around these white liberals, they live in the whitest areas. They're totally scared of anybody with brown skin, but they virtue signal constantly and then say, yes, the white people are bad. The white people are evil. And, I've even seen white people sit up there and say, yeah, it's time to deal with these crackers. And they're a white person saying that. So
from Jackson Hole or Nantucket or Aspen or Bethesda.
I remember I was in Harlem where I grew up and there was this, I was there, I don't know if in my early 20s or something. I'm walking down the street, 116, and there was this girl putting up flyers for, justice for this or, some leftist stuff. And I looked at her and she was brunette, short hair. She was cute and stuff, but, I went up to her and I'm like, do you live here? She's like, no. And I'm like, just obvious. I mean, you're putting up these posters and it was like, join the community protest or something like that. And the chick didn't even live on the same island, or the same borough. She lived like, I think somewhere in Queens or something. I don't remember now, but maybe it was Astoria. Which isn't that far away, but still, it's not East Harlem. And it's just amazing that people from other areas coming in. So Alex is right about that, being these liberal women pushing this. And I'm glad he said that because that tempers the whole racial element, to make, this is, and it reflects my statement that I've said a million times on Twitter, that white people are their own worst enemy. White people are their own, I'll say that again, white people are their own worst enemy. It's true, and so glad Alex says that there because that exemplifies that.
The whitest places in America. So shouldn't there be a law? It's super simple. If you've got a BLM sign in your yard, you should be required to live in Gary, Indiana or Baltimore. You should not be anywhere near Jackson, Wyoming.
You should be made to live in East St. Louis.
I totally agree.
You should be made to live in Detroit.
Yes.
But of course, they've done the studies, they've looked at the statistics. It's not just here, it's in Europe and it's in the UK, like in London. The liberal areas are like 99% white.
Oh, I noticed.
Okay, and there's a lot of rich people in London that aren't white, but they're not even in that area. They are the most insular group, and then they point at white Christian culture and society that actually outlawed slavery in most of the world, was the vanguard of stopping it. And then they don't point at China, which is the most homogeneous, racist group in the world.
It's an ethno-state. It's Han Chinese, period.
Well, they teach, as you know on their news, that we are going to have Chinese superiority. We are the Chinese supremacist. Xi Jinping admires Hitler.
Anyone who tells you otherwise, I have a book that was published by Springer, by the Chinese themselves, called China 2050. and I believe it's open access. And so I think it is. And so this book literally explains how they, not only how they want to become the new global hegemon, but this is great. They have a whole chapter on why the global carbon, all the global warming stuff and the climate change stuff. They said how great it is that when the West adopts those policies, like to reduce emissions and yada yada, that benefits their goal of becoming the global hegemon. They don't say that they adopt them as well. They don't say anything about that, but they see it in a very a matter of fact way, in a very, very glib, nonchalant way of, yeah, when the Western countries, adopt these global warming or climate change policies, it improves our chances and our ability, and shortens the time that it takes for us to become the global hegemon. And this is why people say, "Oh, you got to get rid of all the bases around." No, you can't. You can't, because what happens? Look at the base we gave up in Bagram. What happened to it? It got filled with the Chinese. I mean, so someone's going to fill that gap. The world after World War II, a certain structure was made that had never existed before that. That was basically, a global hegemon for the most part, and that, especially since the collapse of the Soviet Union, that has been a position now that's been created. And so if we vacate that for whatever reason, it's just going to be filled by some other group. And trust me when I say, you don't want it to be any other group, because our government has been created with so many checks and balances, so many things that frustrate the process, that if you give it to any other group, they'll just have it unilateral, despotic hegemon. And especially one like China that is thirsty to have that position. We can't have it. Can't have it. So we need to keep those bases around. We have to, because it's already what it is. And essentially, our position is not to police the world, but we have to, keep like the shipping lanes safe, so that pirates aren't, taking all these ships with all this cargo and taking it for themselves. We need to be there to stop that with our Navy. So we're needed, whether we like it or not. And we have to take this role, because this country is special. It's a very special, when all the founders, all the people at the beginning of the country all knew this country was divine providence. They may have different beliefs about God, but they all believe that this country was basically His will, and that it's, and I believe, post millennialism, from that point of view, that this is going to ameliorate the world, help ameliorate the world, set on that path, so that the world will be ameliorated to the point that Jesus Christ would want to come back, where no one is going to kill him or imprison him or abuse him again. And that's when He comes back to reign. When we roll out that red carpet for Him, and to make the world not better, but ameliorated, to make it less bad up to a certain point, and then boom, He'll come back, and that could be 1,000 years from now. It could be 5 years from now. We don't know, but that's what we have to do. We got to roll out that red carpet, and then we meet Him in the air, right? The rapture, which means, basically we meet Him in the air, and then the way you bring an emperor back into the city, where like you parade him back into the city. That's how we're, what the Greek word means, is to basically meet Him in the air, and then like a parade, escort Him like ambassadors into the city, into the world again. Almost like we're coming back. We meet Him in the air, and then we come towards the world in like a parade, or just like a big, like, here we come, and that's amazing. That's awesome. So everyone will meet Him in the air, the dead, the living, that were in Christ, and we're going to escort Him back to earth with His reign, like that. Not just to come, but like He is king. He is king now. Whoosh, I mean, it's exciting. It may be a million years from now, but it's exciting. Remember, He said He'll be like a thief in the night, not a thief with a knife. Not a thief with a knife, a thief in the night. Okay.
He is literally following a race-based operation that is taking the world over, that owns the majority of Hollywood, that's paid off the Democratic Party. And if you look at all these anti-white shows that you see funded in Hollywood, almost all of it has majority literal communist Chinese government backing that is funding this. So it's real simple. China looks in and sees this diverse culture, and they say, we're going to use that to split the country up and balkanize it. And that's what they've done. And so communist China, along with the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL and all these groups, see America's weakness, and they're literally coming in saying white people are inherently bad because of the color of their skin. They inherently have cheated people. They've hurt people. White people invented racism. None of that's true. It's really just tribalism. And then they organize all these other groups into race-based groups to then unify them under the Democratic Party to attack who is left that tends to be more conservative, and that is some white people in this country. Though they're panicking because more and more blacks are voting Republican, more and more Hispanics are voting Republican. They're starting to figure this out. So now they're in panic mode to bring in totally disenfranchised third world populations who are refugees from the multi-year lockdowns in Africa, Latin America, and Asia and the Middle East. They then bring them to UN camps, brainwash them, then bring them to our border, brainwash them more, then send them into the United States, and then literally hold them for years at facilities while they're indoctrinated to be this new political underclass that's then going to be turned loose on America. And that's why you see Democrats giving illegal aliens the right to vote in their cities, giving them driver's license. That's why you
Just want to be real clear about something. This is the freeing aspect of history. I've been reading a lot of American history and taking a lot of notes, and this country's always had, at the local levels, immigrants or people that are that don't have citizenship, allowing them to vote. And this is what I feel about it. If you have someone who's a resident, especially a legal resident, or a legal resident of an area, they may be on visa, they may be an alien, but if they're a resident there, a legal resident, they should be able to vote on local matters because they live there. That has nothing to do with the federal government. It's basically like things like the roads and the schools and things like that, stuff that they're using and contributing to. And this lie that people that don't have citizenship don't pay taxes, a lot of them do. And I do a lot of the taxes that they do. The government gives them an ITN number, basically a social security number that starts with the number 9. And so they pay their taxes, are likely to pay, and a lot of them do, because they feel it would help their the process of them becoming citizen, saying, look, I'm already contributing. The real danger comes from the war on drugs, because that creates the gangs like the Al Capones of the drug world to then create the mayhem and the fear. Okay, let's go.
You see them passing laws. They can be police officers. So they are importing a new enforcement class against the American people, and they're setting it up along racial lines, not us. They're making it racial, just like Hitler made what he did racial. So it's the left and the think tanks and the communist Chinese that look at the U.S. and have seen our weakness as race, and they are exacerbating it.
So I don't understand. So you're from Texas. You grew up in Texas. Your family's been there a long time. Texas is changing really fast. It's dirty, for one thing, I notice, because physically dirty, garbage on the side of the road. I never have seen that in Texas before. So your governor could have stopped that. He commands the Texas National Guard, and he didn't. And I feel like that makes him a traitor to the country, but what am I missing?
Well, I mean, Governor Abbott is, on a scale of 1 to 10, the best kind of Republican governor is a 10, and the worst is, say, a 1. And like the Illinois, it's a so-called Republican, that's really a Democrat. I would put Greg Abbott as about a 5. The state is overwhelmed. There isn't really a state mechanism. It's federal to kick people back and deport them. So they have put up barbed wire. They have tried to stop people. They have.
There it is. The dead fish comes back. Hold on.
5.
Watch.
The state is overwhelmed. There isn't really a state mechanism. It's federal to kick people.
There you go. There's the dead fish, everyone. There it is. It came back. because he doesn't he's like, why is Alex not going along with me? He's supposed to say it's a dirty place too, and that demographics is destiny, and yada yada yada. What happened? It's like, no. Alex does, can't say anything too radical because a whole lot of the fucking audience will stop paying for all the stuff, and he's dependent on that, and that's the piece he'll make. But he's smarter than this. It's one, Alex is not a dumb guy. He may have not gone to college, but he's very well read in history because his father had a huge library of academic history books, and he's read a lot of them, and he reads. I could, when you read a lot, when you're in smarty pants, you could see it in other people. Like, I'll give you an example. Chuck Schumer is smart. I don't like the guy. I really think he should get out of there. But when he was talking about Kavanaugh, and he said, Kavanaugh, you have unleashed a whirlwind, and he messed up there because he was supposed to say, you have sowed the wind, you have sowed the wind and reaped the whirlwind. But he started off saying whirlwind, but instead of starting over, he said, and you won't know what hit you. And that's brilliant. I mean, that is. I must applaud that. I mean, wow. I mean, shit, that's great. I mean, that's not just like something to say. Like, that makes a lot of sense. Like the whirlwind, and you get hit in the face. So even though he messed up with the biblical reference, he turned it into another viable and actually unique reference. And so that takes intelligence. So dead fish, everybody, dead fish. Tucker, dead fish. Tucker, he's smarter than most people, but it's just that because he's too spooky. That's the problem. So you don't see him, you see what he wants you to see, like a magician, right, or an illusionist or whatever. They want you to look at their hand when their left hand when their right hand's doing something. So Tucker's like that. So it's a little hard to figure out, but he's definitely not dumb. Probably is intelligent. Dead fish though.
People back and deport them. So they have put up barbed wire. They have tried to stop people. They have tried, but then they have to hand them over to the feds who release them.
But why not just say the feds are committing a crime? They're committing a crime. This is not.
No, they're not committing a crime. So what Biden administration has done is they have liberally interpreted the asylum process, and that's within their purview. So essentially, they're treating these folks, even though they're not coming here for asylum, they're coming here to work. That's why they're all military age males, because that's the age of people that work. But anyway, they're treating them as if they're like people running away from a genocide. And so it doesn't matter where you beat them, because imagine there was a genocide, right? And then there are people running away from that. Yeah, of course you would meet them in the freaking desert, on the border or whatever. It's like by any means, but this is not a genocide. This is something else. This is just a migration of work. Migration, that's what it is. And so it is an abuse, but it's within their purview. And the only way you could stop it is one with the courts, which isn't happening because, and I'll tell you why. The same reason why Trump was able to do a Muslim ban, wasn't really a Muslim ban, but he banned certain countries from coming over. But 87% of Muslims were still allowed, but within that 13%, he blocked. And that went to the Supreme Court, and they ruled it was fine because the president has a lot of leeway, a lot of power in the foreign policy realm, including who gets to come in and all that stuff. And so the president has a lot of power over that. So in the same way, the president can say, these guys are likely the refugees. And then we put them through the court process to see if they really are. But in the meanwhile, they're going to stay here while their court process happens. You see how that works? So when people say it's illegal, this is an abuse of power. This is done under color of law, though. And you can't, like I said, the president has large powers when it comes to foreign policy and foreign people coming in, whether to take people here or there. And so saying it's illegal is just a dead end because it's not. Well, you have to say it's an abuse of power. It's a travesty. It's ultimately unjust for the people coming over because eventually they're not going to be seen as asylum seekers. You know, the court's going to say no, and then they're going to have to be taken away, taken out of the country again, and so it's all going to be just a waste of their fucking time, and you know. So anyway, so don't see it as like an abuse because that makes people despondent. That makes people want to like do desperate things because they think like, you know, the government's doing literal illegal. I mean, there's no hope, no, and then they do crazy shit, and or give up all hope and not try to do anything. And that's what these fuckers are doing, like Tucker and all this. That's what they want to do. They hate you. They hate you. Whereas Alex, he always gives you hope about things and where it could go and where it could lead, and that's really the difference. And if he keeps that up, they're gonna, you know, the Neil Straussian fascists are gonna kick him out of their club. Oh, that's a joke.
Not allowed under laws passed by the Congress. In a democracy, Congress passed laws. And so you've got criminals running the country. The Biden administration is criminal, which is true. And we're not playing along. And like, if you don't like it, come do something about it. Meanwhile, every able-bodied man with a black rifle assemble at the border, and we're just going to stop this and save the country. I don't understand. Like, that's not hard. What am I missing?
No, I think you're absolutely right. In fact, what the deep state fears would be a coalition of good governors, good attorney generals, giving them the findings and the rulings that they could indeed do that, and then declaring emergencies in the.
I mean, come on. I told you Alex is deferential as shit. So he's going to like try to find a way to agree with whoever he's talking to. You know, like I said, the one time it happens with Kanye West because it just went too far. But look what he does. He almost puts his gloss over it. You know, because he comes from a family of intelligence spooks. You know, he's not. He knows this shit. And so like he's there saying, you know, yeah, you're right, and then gloss. Yeah, you know, the governor's getting together in the courts to make sure they could do that, as opposed to what Tucker said, which was just, you know, symbol at the border, just get your gun. I mean, these are illegal. Why even follow them anyway? You know, you know the right way. Come on, go. I mean, it's pathetic. You know, it's pathetic when this guy goes to Tucker goes to a gala, and he wears a fucking, not plaid, but that like, oh, you know, whatever that shirt with all little squares that he wears. That looks like, you know, blue collar. He wears that, you know, because he's playing a fucking role. He has a brand, which this guy's posh as shit. I mean, this guy went to a liberal arts liberal arts college in Connecticut, high level, elite liberal arts college. You know, his father married into the Swanson, you know, Swanson Foods. The Swanson heiress, his father married, which is his stepmother, and so he gets a stipend, not a stipend. What do you call it? Trust fund, and he doesn't have to work. That's why he's, you know, doing this. But he gets money because, you know, his parents put it in a trust fund for him, and so this guy. When there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's a problem. If you earned it, you earned it. But these people are making it seem like they're not, you know, trust fund kids, that they're, you know, he's a blue collar guy, and that, you know, it's bullshit. It's a brand. He's there to manipulate MAGA. He was there. Remember, he was put in immediately after Trump gets in. They took out O'Reilly in the most spooky way possible. You know, a sex scandal, which is it's easy. It's easy, quick, boosh, gone. What do you do? You know, he grabbed a titty, or, you know, he said, you know, let's fuck to somebody. Oh, it's gone. Just, you know, it's whenever you see that, you got to think, yeah, this is a little spooky. There's a little intelligence operation going on here. I'm not saying that's always the case with sex scandals, but that's one of their favorite ways of getting someone out is just saying, oh, there's a, you know, like look at the guy from CNN, right? The not Zucker, whatever the guy, the guy who used to run CNN, and is it Zucker? I don't know. And he, you know, he left because he had an affair with, you know, some woman there, and it was, you know, gone. It's just, you know, immediately. No questions asked. It's like no decision, no qualms. Just go, right? Because it's such a great way for them to do it. And so O'Reilly gets taken out that way. Tucker gets put in. First fucking 2 years of the show, he has the background with all the lecture, with all the, and then after that, it seems like he has no connection to Trump at all, and he's going off on a different direction. It just, most nights not even talking about Trump. That was like a Hannity thing, and so you see him what he's doing. He's trying to capture part of the audience and take it to a certain direction, and do what? Do things like assemble at the border with your rifle, any able-bodied man. I mean, come on, man, come on. Look, again, maybe I'm wrong ultimately about his intentions, but hold him at arm's length, okay? Please. Like I said, Alex he's just some disappointing sometimes because of the fucking tap dance he has to do to keep his, the money coming in. See, Alex never had an issue with money until Google took away his ads. See, he used to advertise on Google. So you would be on some random website and you would see, Brain Force, and in like, I don't know, 2014, 2015, they just took him right out of there. And that's how he started. And that's when he used to, if you used to watch InfoWars for a while, right? You remember that all the ads were not cuts from the radio show where they were taking some calls or, which is low budget, right? No, they used to film actual commercials. Like if you remember Millie Weaver, right? The blonde with she had a commercial for the shampoo they used to have, where she was like literally like in the pool and the whole thing where she gets up in the bikini and all the sex sells and shit. They literally, or they did one of the last ones they did was with Savannah Hernandez, who basically, she was doing a female, alpha female or whatever. And, she was doing the jogging thing. And so, and they had the drone copter taking all the shots. So, that's production, and yet now they don't do that. They got hit hard, man. It's sad. Like you really, like if you look at before, man, they barely would go on about like the ads, like in show ads. Because like I said, it was most of the people buying were not even people who would watch the show. There were people just scrolling the internet, seeing a Google ad. And so that's when it really hit him. And, but he doesn't have a trust fund like Tucker, though. You see? So, and also what's another amazing, and this is amazing about him, that you call it ego or whatever, but he did put most of the money he made back into that operation. He didn't buy, yachts and, a bunch of properties and stuff, He literally put most, and then you saw it. You saw like, for the change from like 2014 to like 2017 and the bigger studio and the LCD screens. We're all flawed, but I love the guy. I really do, and the only thing that really pisses me off when he says God has an evil side that he's running away from. No, he doesn't. God didn't make the universe because he was bored and he was lonely. That's not what happened. God made the universe because he exists in a trinity of, an eternal relationship, beautiful, unbroken, gives him everything he needs or everything he needs, and yet he wants to share it with us. See, it's so alien to us, right? Because when we get something we like, we want to hold on to it and not, and maybe share it with just a couple of people. But God's like, this is so awesome. I want other souls to be here too. I want to grow a family and have them within this glory. And so there's no evil side to him. He's not flawed. He's not bored. He is the best we could ever think of, the most maximally great being. Every quality, personality type that is like good, just to the max. That's what God is. That's how awesome he is. He really is. So he is the foundation. He is the foundation of eternity. He's the source of eternity. And he is a great guy. He's awesome. And so so Alex, you're wrong about that. God doesn't have an evil side. No. We sin. We choose to go our own way, which is where the evil comes from, not him. He's not a comet running away from himself. Please. And I used to believe kind of stuff like that, Like there was a time like in like 2017 or something, I used to say, if God does exist, he's like a cosmic deadbeat daddy, right? That he just like creates the world and is like, whoa, that was wild, and just leaves us. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. So no, it's that he's a really great person, the greatest person, in Trinity, the Father, because it's really the way it works out is the Father is deciding everything. He's the one making all the decisions. This happens. The Son is figuring out how to do it, like what way to do it, So the Father says A to B, and then the Son figures out how to get from A to B. And then what the Holy Spirit does is essentially the kind of motivation or the feeling of that, going through all that, and so that person has the motivation to do it, and it's essentially love. And I mean, a way you could think about it is that the love between the Father and Son is so strong that it's another person, And that's how strong it is. It's literally another person. That other person's also God, but the Father proceeds both, right? Or precedes. I'm sorry, precedes both. Both the Son and the Holy Spirit proceed from the Father, and if you want to look more of this up, it's called Trinitarian monarchism, or monarchical Trinitarianism, something like that. It has a wiki. You can see it there. Let's go on.
States, and having a coalition of the states come in and do this, and then instruct local police and everybody else.
Sounds real different than just assemble your rifles, able-bodied men at the border, right? Like he's going so legalistic. That's what I'm saying. He's deferential, but he's not trying to fall into this. But I think, like I said, I think he's doing a gambit. I think he's trying to like walking a tightrope almost,
To not have sanctuary cities. But the problem is, if you're in Texas, every single city, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, are Democrat Party run. And so Texas is almost purple because the California influx and all the other refugees from New York, many of them bring their leftist ideology with them, even though they're fleeing it. Like locusts, they fly to the next field. And so that's really the issue, is that the legislature is somewhat cucked, to use that word again. And I think the governor has been cucked. He certainly went along with lockdowns and masks more than really any other Republican governor. And so I do think Greg Abbott needs to do a better job. But I also wanted to list some of the things that the state is up against. But I'll say this. Austin fired a bunch of police and another third quit. Crime everywhere, homeless everywhere, trash everywhere, ruin the city like everywhere else they are.
You live there?
Absolutely. That's where my family's from. I've been there since high school, but I'm gonna have to leave soon because it's gotten more and more like Los Angeles every day. It's very sad to see it. People fleeing LA, like my friend Joe Rogan, it seems great to him because he went from a really, really bad situation into a bad situation. But if you've been there, you can see the decline. You can see how fast it is, and it's really, 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 really sad. And there are just illegal aliens everywhere, and refugees from the rest of the country all over the place. And you see really the economic decline of most of the mom and pop businesses and things. So the same rot we've seen all over the country. Austin was supposedly this big mecca, and it was going to be so great. And now, sadly, it's falling apart. I mean, Tucker, you know the answer to all this. You do the best job of anybody with a true Americana populist breakdown. The ruling elites of the world, the Black Rocks, the State Streets, they're on record saying they don't want our consumer society. They don't want our capitalist society. It's bad, it's ugly, it's gross. But they're the biggest consumers compared to anybody else in the world. Their quote, carbon footprints are thousands of times bigger than the average person. Leonardo DiCaprio or Klaus Schwab literally have carbon footprints thousands of times bigger than the average poor working American, that they're telling you can't have a car or air conditioning. Remember, before Obama left office, he traveled to Latin America, to Africa, and the Middle East. And what did he tell them in speeches? The clips are famous. You can't have a car or air conditioning. The earth will overheat and burn up. While he's telling people that by the year 2017, like Al Gore said, we would have areas flooded on the coastal areas while he bought a big house in Martha's Vineyard at 1 foot above sea level. And of course, it's still there and it hasn't flooded. I mean, his chef died there, drowned sadly, but no flooding inside the house, just the dead chef. So they're waging war against civilization and society to make us poor, to put us under siege, and to cut off our energy, make the cost of living impossible, to break our old system, to bring in something even worse. And that's the Cloward and Piven strategy that the Democratic Party has adopted. They've done the same thing in Europe. This is a plan. The central banks have unlimited money, but they can't buy all the infrastructure up because people aren't selling. So they've got to crush us and make people so poor that everybody's forced to sell their business, their intellectual property, their physical property, but more importantly, to turn over our bodies to them. We're a UN treaty that Biden right now is, that's what I call Biden, is Biden is trying to ratify, would literally put our bodies under the control of the United Nations and our medical care policy under it. So
it's the pandemic
treaty.
Yeah.
So what this is really a breaking of our will, a demoralization. That's what the transgenderism is, and 2 men can have a baby, and puberty blockers, and castrating little boys, and cutting little girls' breasts off. They've got such hellish stuff coming in this designed global collapse to bring in their world government that they've got to just have all these horrors out there, hoping we just throw up our hands and run off to the countryside, which everybody's doing, and in a way that's good. But at the same time, then they've got full control.
That's totally right.
And they're going to march out of the countryside next and dig us out.
So that's, I mean, you look at the White House press secretary, who can barely speak English, who's one of the stupidest people I've ever seen, and a transparent liar. You wouldn't hire her to run your copy machine. She's the White House press secretary. Why would you do that? And it's not because of her race or who she sleeps with. I think the whole point is she's so obviously repulsive that it makes you feel bad about the country to see her.
I mean, that's it. We're at a beautiful ball. It's prom night. Everybody's dressed great. There's wonderful food, big, delicious punch bowl. And then they say, what can we do? Well, just have Brian Stelter go take a dump right in that.
Yeah.
And then he's there laughing at you. They're all there laughing at you to make you feel small, to make.
You see how he again, Alex deracializes it. He goes, it's this, repulsive woman who I actually think she's kind of cute, to tell you the truth. I don't like her hair because she doesn't have much. That's a wig that she has, but not to say I don't like that kind of hair. It's just I want to see it's longer. I just like women with longer hair, and regardless of the style, but regardless, she she ain't ugly, and repulsive. And Alex is just goes to someone who's really ugly, Stelter. So again, deracializing. So it's just I want to do his legacy, but in an intellectual way, which is what I'm doing. And that requires to come up with a theory of American exceptionalism and to understand its greatest enemy, which is this kind of paternalistic front from the globalists and all of them. So there's really three groups that are threatening. The biggest is the liberal imperialists. This includes the neoliberals and all that, transgender stuff, all that stuff. The neo-Straussian fascists are basically like the Peter Thiel side, and the people that have taken over Alex or captured him, and that's why he's on X now and all that stuff. Those people behind Elon. And then finally you have the which is the smallest group, the progressive Maoists. These are people, because since China broke away from the New World Order, so to speak, from the liberal imperialists, because they started growing their own military, they have now a smaller, influence in basically creating like a world hegemon of China, and basically, so I call them the neo-progressive. neo-Maoists, the progressive Maoists. Oh man, yeah, the progressive Maoists. So those three groups, you know, liberal imperialists, neo-Straussian fascists, and progressive Maoists. But go on, Alex.
Make you question reality. Why is everything so ugly? I mean, that's why they tell people, hey, you can be homeless anywhere. You can crap on the street, needles, throw your garbage everywhere. Drug dealers can sell you drugs. We're going to give the homeless all this government funding. Liberal groups come in and farm and milk each homeless person and skim a big cut of the money off the top. It's a crop. But then a cash crop. But then we see that and we think it's all over. There's nothing we can do to demoralize us and make us give up. And even though I'm conscious of this, even though I know this, it's still at a DNA level. I'm like, I got to go to the country. I got to get out of here. I've got to separate myself from this. But then when they release this toxic cultural poisonous gas, they push us out of those areas and they get the main infrastructure to then organize.
Yeah, so people like Torba. Is it Alex Torba? The guy who runs Gab or created Gab. Is it Alex Torba? I know the last name's Torba. People like him. Oh, go out to the country. Go out to the country. Yeah, it's the same shit. It's all part of a plan. Yeah, whether or not I think he is definitely co-opted. That whole fucking platform is one big psyop. It's one big fucking honeypot. You know. But anyway.
Organize that. Cut off the food and supplies to that group they have, and then tell them the reason you're doing bad is not BlackRock and the WF and Bill Gates. It's all those evil people in the countryside. They're all white supremacists and terrorists and racists. Let's go get them. Because the last group they don't control is rural people that are self-sufficient. And so I get going to the countryside, protecting your children. That's the holy grail. The problem is you've got to have 1 foot in each. You got to go back and fight in the city for the infrastructure, for the government. You got to give people hope, while also building a backup operation with farming and ranching and self-sufficiency. So that's why the WEF and the UN are coming in Ireland and in areas of Asia and in the Netherlands and saying, by 2030, 80% of your cows have got to be dead. And they just banned like 30% this year in the Netherlands. And it didn't matter people were 80% against it in polls. It didn't matter. They sent the military in against the peaceful farmers that were just protesting, just like the peaceful truckers in Canada got brutally attacked. And so they're all WEF globalist alumni that the big banks on record brag. They've penetrated the cabinets, to quote Klaus Schwab. They've put their operatives in to cut off our energy, demoralize us, release the hardened criminals, put the political activists in prison, continue to cut off the resources to make an angrier world. Klaus Schwab says, we're going to make the world collapse. We're going to have everybody turn against each other. We're going to blame the political classes that we own and control. And then when we're done, we'll bring in our new solution. But first, they have to demolish the cultures and societies that we had before with the fentanyl, with the open borders, with the demoralization, and then they bring in their next phase, which is a high-tech, cashless society, robot, drone-controlled nightmare. More than half of the U.S. in their official UN maps that they've had for more than 25 years, that are some of my first films, show half the U.S. off limits to humans. All cars will have to have GPS. Everybody by law will have to have a cell phone at all times. Australia just did this last year, tried to push it through. And that's the admitted global UN standardized plan, where you don't leave your house without a cell phone. Every car is robot kill switch, GPS controlled. California is moving to ban all the quote classic cars. That's any car that doesn't have a digital ignition. And they admit it's for control. So if people think things are bad now, the straitjacket, the ball and chain is going on. It's all being militarily run. Our military is great men and women, but at the top, our military has been globalist, trained, New World Order people for at least 30, 40 years. They've got almost every general, every person under their control, and that's why it came out in the UK and Europe and also here in Canada. You pull up the headlines, Defense Department purposely scared public into lockdowns, masking, and taking inoculations. UK headline, British Ministry of Defense secretly brainwashed and terrorized public. Canada, same headline. They even let you know, oh, the military is here to do this. And now, oh, the CIA and Justice Department is there to help surveil the public to stop disinformation. And it turned out, of course, almost all that disinformation was true.
He doesn't look amused. If I had to fucking guess, he looks like a spook saying, "You motherfucker, what are you doing telling the people this shit?" It's almost like one magician, looking at someone's like, "What are you doing telling everyone how we do our magic tricks, you bastard?"
True.
Always.
About everything. So we have to understand, our governments have been seized. The big corporations want to get rid of the American idea. Like, you got 50 acres and your house and a business and a farm, and you can take care of your family, and you're independent. They have to destroy all that because the rest of the world aspires to that. Instead, they want 15-minute cities, central bank digital currencies. They want all of these systems that track and trace everything you do in the social credit scores. And the plan for the rest of the public, we're talking 99%, is 250 square foot coffin apartments, 5G bathing you in.
Just imagine this. Imagine you had the money and all that and the family to have, like, you raise your family, the kids, in like some rural place, right? And then when they're like, late teens and 20s and all that stuff, you have a place in the city where the kids of that age in your family, whether it be your kids or let's say your brother's kids or whatever, go there to live in the city, to work, and to be, because kids love, when you're young, you should be in the city because that's, you want experiences and stuff. And they go there, and eventually maybe they'll come back and then maybe buy more land or expand the house, or I don't know. I'm just having fantasies about what it's like to have a loving big family and have different properties. Because that's what the elites do. And people were able to do that in the middle class, and they're ruining that. Ruining that shit. Anyway.
Them literally eating bug protein. And I told people 10 years ago they're going to push bugs on the public because I read it in their white papers. Now it's already in grocery stores all over the U.S., all over Europe. They're putting the cricket meal into the food, very toxic.
Undisclosed, yeah.
It's got chitin in it. Yeah, they'll just give it a number. It's got like a code.
It's not undisclosed. And I love how Alex goes on to explain that it is disclosed, but it's with a number. Because, again, he always does this. He's always trying to find a way to make himself agree with the person. But he has limits, though. We've seen that with Kanye West.
And you ask again, why would you do that? Because it's all about breaking our will. They don't want people to aspire to open, free societies. Yeah, there's a lot of waste, there's decadence, there's issues, but there's freedom. They want to train us to live on carbon rationing, food rationing, a very dystopic world. You'll own nothing, you'll have nothing, and you'll be happy. Now, these are quotes.
I have to say, I bet there are, I don't know how long into this we are, 30 minutes or something. I bet there are a lot of people watching who are thinking, holy smokes, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Alex Jones. I'm supposed to hate this guy. Like, where's the lie in what you just said? I'm not sucking up. I'm sincere. Like, I'm listening to this, and even myself, I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm nodding along to Alex Jones and being like, you're absolutely right. Like, where are you wrong?
Well, I just hope people realize that we're all under the gun. So many of these leftists believe that because they go along with us, they're going to be given powerful positions in this system. This is a technocracy. There's almost no managers in this.
So that's what I want to do, is because I could build a theory of American exceptionalism that will fit not only what he's saying in terms of its enemies, this paternalistic technocracy, but also what really makes America great, and what it's, because America needs that. We need a way of thinking of ourselves for the 21st century that addresses all the stuff that's, happened in time since the founding. And it has to not be an update on the theory itself, like to make it different, but to be something that is a way of thinking, that a way of imagining America that is in the 21st century, that doesn't feel like an anachronism or distant or abstract, but they connect with their everyday life. That's what we need, and that's what I'm working on. Damn it.
Almost nobody has power in the system except a very small group of technocrats who happen to be transhumanist. And you said something really astute a few weeks ago in a speech you gave, and you've also talked about on your show, that all of this stems from their fear and denial of death.
So one of the things I find so striking about you, having watched you on and off over the years, and this must be a burden for you personally, but your ability to see people at a deeper level, or to see things in them that are not obvious to the rest of us. And I want to give a specific example. So there's a guy called Brian Stelter who had the media show on CNN. I first met Brian Stelter when he was a high school student or a first-year college.
I'm starting to think that Tucker's job, his gloss here, is to basically say to people, Alex, yeah, he gets this stuff right because he's just instinct, you know. When Alex is like, no, there's all these papers and you know, articles and things that you could read that you could also know. But instead of Tucker getting into any of that, the sources or the receipts, no. Instead, he just says, you could just like see people from the inside. You know, it's like, yeah, I know what you're doing, bro. You're trying to put that gloss so that people think, man, he just has it. You know, as opposed to thinking, oh, what does he read? Oh, what's the way he interprets things? Okay, no. Instead, it's just, you know, he's a clairvoyant or he just has a knack. It's just, it's subtle, but it's obvious what Tucker's doing. That's why I say I cannot trust this fellow, this guy.
Student, because he would hang around the show I worked on at the time at CNN. This was 20 years ago at least. And I always thought he was awkward and weird and probably had a super creepy personal life, but I never took him seriously. There's a pretty famous clip, and I want to play it right now, of you critiquing Brian Stelter, and you take him way more seriously than I ever did, and I think you're right to. So this is a pretty famous clip of you on Brian Stelter.
Hell on earth. He wants to run your life. He wants to control every aspect of your life because he knows he is a cowardly, degenerate sack of anti-human trash. I pledge before my Heavenly Father that I will resist them every way I can. These people are the literal demon spawn of the pit of hell. Look at him. And you know what? He is better than you if you keep letting him run your life. He runs your kids. He runs the schools. He runs the banks. This guy, this spirit, this smiling, leering devil that thinks you can't see what he is your enemy. Period. All the narcissistic, devil-worshipping filth. I see you, enemy. I see you, enemy. 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 You are my enemy. And I swear total resistance to you with everything I've got. Disingenuous, fake, false, broke back, twisted, a defiler, a betrayer, a backstabber, a devil. You don't think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you. You understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? Understand that? You understand that, Stelter?
I've only watched that several hundred.
Yeah, he watched that, but he doesn't like look at any of the other things. By the way, Tucker has a aristocratic laugh. Oh, oh, oh. I mean, what the fuck? Who laughs like that? I don't know a single person laughs. Oh, 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 oh. I could see like the fucking powdered wig on him, and like the fake mole and the fucking lacy outfit. Oh, 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 oh. It's like the fuck.
100 times. And I laugh every time, but I also, there's something to, if Brian Stelter had absolute power, would you and your family survive? Of course not. You wouldn't. You'd be, of course not, and neither would mine. So there's a lot that's true about what you said. How did you perceive that? The rest of us just made fun of him.
Now, once they started the censorship and deplatforming, remember back then they would deny it. Oh yeah, we're taking people off air, but it's not censorship. Now they admit, no, it's censorship. We're doing this for your own good. So he was really the face of that. And he was working for the head of CNN that was really in charge of it. It later came out. CNN currently is not in charge. They've handed it completely over to the Justice Department to quarterback, as Congress reported a few months ago with the documents. But at the time, Brian Stelter and his mini-me, Oliver Darcy,
His Popeye to Congress.
were going around calling up and harassing my sponsors, taking sponsors away. And they were going around and organizing big tech to take not just myself, but many other people offline. And so he was destroying our free speech. He was taking our sponsors.
But it's crazy. I just want to restate. You are not promoting race hatred. You're against race hatred. You never have promoted that, ever. You're not promoting violence. You've never called for violence. And you've never even called for breaking the law.
And so that's why there's so much anger there, because I remember the day I did that and a few other clips that went viral. I showed all the stuff he was doing, but then the media attacked me and just clicked it out of context, but still it reverberated with people because people were sick of the corporate legacy media. So people say, well, why is he so angry? Well, it's because he's literally trying to take us off air, literally taking our sponsors. I mean, the equivalent of the Vikings 1,000 years ago in England pulling up and burning a village down. And so there he is, all sweet and liberal and cackling and laughing, but he's really an agent of anti-American totalitarianism. And so he was the front man of that. And I wanted to just simply say,
Well, you're right.
I see you, I know what you're doing. So people see it out of context and think, why are you being so mean to him? Well, I mean, he's literally trying to destroy my free speech, take me off air, and put my family on the street. So I'm pissed off at him.
What's interesting is, and I mean, I don't know if you want me to reveal this, but we had dinner in our barn last night, and there were some drinks. And after dinner, you and my producer called Stelter on the phone. And what was so, and it was on speaker, so I listened to it. What was so interesting was, you know, you've been very clear in a very direct, pretty masculine way, I would say, about how you feel about Brian Stelter. There's not a lot of confusion about your views on Stelter after clips like that, which doubtless he's seen because he Googles himself compulsively. He was very kind of syrupy sweet with you.
And that's why I was sarcastic and told him I want to date him.
You did, yeah. In fact, the exact line
Alex always says
you
that.
had
He's like,
was,
I want
"Brian,
to marry
I'm
you.
not usually gay, but I want you."
Yeah.
And he seemed a little bit, I'm not saying he's open to it or whatever, but he wasn't shocked by
And
it.
he's like, give me your phone number. Give me, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then he hit your producer up. Please give me his number right now. Let's
Yeah, that
talk.
was interesting.
But I was being silly with him. But there was also a line. He goes, oh, Alex Jones. I said, I want you to come on my show. And he said, oh, you still got a show? And I went, no, you're the one that doesn't have a show.
Sorry, I should. It's so,
Tell him the other line.
It's so boorish to like recount conversations people weren't witness
It was funny
to.
though.
But you said, you know, you're off TV now, but you were a real star. I mean, not on CNN, but on my show. It was so good. Anyway, but what was interesting was if someone had talked about you that way and then called you late night after a couple drinks, you'd say, you know, up yours, pal. You know what I mean? Like buzz off, or I'm not taking your call. But he kind of sucked up to you. That's a very weird, passive-aggressive posture.
Well, I've said a lot of really mean things about him and attacked him. And when I watch the clips out of context, I feel guilty. But he was going around with Oliver Darcy. They would brag on Twitter and literally hitting hundreds of my sponsors. And I say hundreds, I'd have like 20. They'd take them all. I get 20 more, take them all. This went on for years. So you go get a sponsor, you get them, they're doing great. He takes it away from you. And then he brags that him and Dart, I was taken off Twitter, not for the Sandy Hook stuff that came later that they focused on. Look it up. They had the former head of Twitter and the lawyer on Joe Rogan about 4 years ago. And Joe said, why did you ban Alex Jones? The lawyer goes, okay, let me open my clipboard. She goes, here's why. He was mean to Oliver Darcy. So I'm at the Capitol. They're having censorship hearings. Sundar Pichai's there. I just confronted him in the hall.
Who runs Google.
And you guys are welcome to use that if you want. And then that was at the Senate. So now they were going over to a House meeting, and there's Oliver Darcy in the line. He gets to get in. I don't even get into a hearing where they then attacked me. They'd attacked me at the last hearing, but I don't get to face my accuser. And so I get in his face. I don't threaten him, but I say, you are an evil man. You're un-American, coming after my free speech, harassing my sponsors, trying to get me off the internet. And the last place I was on was Twitter. They'd held out. And so Jack Dorsey had held out. And so Jack Dorsey admitted, well, the last straw was I bullied Oliver Darcy. And so that's why I was deplatformed. Elon Musk thinks it was the Sandy Hook thing. And notice.
Do you know that in most cultures, bullying Oliver Darcy would be like a rite of passage? Like you couldn't, like that would be a positive good, right?
Well, but here's the thing. He's literally on Twitter taking my sponsors, calling for me to be silenced. So he's been attacking me, attacking my speech and my living. And then all I do is shove a camera in his face while he's waiting to go into the hearing for 5 minutes and say, man, you are un-American. You got some evil eyes. And I said, you really look like a piece of slime. I mean, I told him that. And,
Fair.
And so the point is, he's a man. He's a, quote, journalist in the arena. He goes around harassing people and stalking them financially and their free speech. He'd already bragged that he'd gotten me taken off all this other stuff and that he was instrumental, which he was. And then he can't take me saying, man, you're a jerk.
Right.
So,
Well, this is the classic posture. Stop hitting me, he says, as he, fires a gun through your windshield.
Exactly. They can dish it out, but they can't take it.
So what's the effect on you? And I don't mean even the lawsuits against you, and there was an effort to criminally indict you, I guess, just for having bad opinions or whatever.
A bunch of them, actually.
A bunch of them, yeah.
They've had 4 grand juries I've had to respond to, subpoenas. My lawyers,
when you've committed no crime, you're like one of the only people in media who's not ginning up race hatred, I would say, just to be totally clear, because it's very common to do that. You don't.
Yeah, like he does it all the fucking time. And to be honest, a lot of the people on InfoWars, like fucking Harrison, was probably a fucking mole for Iran. He little David Koresh lookalike, little bastard. He ended up blocking me finally. But I don't like him. He plays right into that race hatred bullshit. The whole, stuff of, Mark Dice does too, and it makes me sad because I've read a lot of his books, and I even have his book on dating, okay, from like 2005 or something, or even earlier. The Resistance Manifesto days, and it's sad to see him go this way, because if you read the books, he actually explains why you shouldn't go into this race bullshit. But now he's doing it. Makes me think he's been captured. Sad. Anyway. Because the guy has a lot of talent, and he is a scholar in his own right, and it's sad because his books were really good, and they have a lot of good detail in them. And he's done his homework. And yeah, he's, doing things like the fucking, the whole shit about the fire alarm, low battery stuff. Which is true for all fucking poor places. They all have that because they're usually someone else's, landlord or whatever is putting in those fire alarms. But it's just pathetic, man. This is just what they're doing. So here Tucker admits, it's a common thing, race hatred. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. But no, Alex isn't doing that. Special breed. That's why it would break. It wouldn't be disappointing. He disappoints me now, but it would break my heart if he started going like with the program of the other people. It would break my heart. It would be like, why, man? There were days I didn't want to. There were days like 10 years ago I didn't want to fucking get out of bed, and I would listen to him and be like, man, he knows the same shit I do with regards to. And he got up. He's able to do this. I could get up too. And so I don't want to see him go that way, man.
Don't do that. So anyway, and then of course this $1 billion judgment against you for having naughty opinions, which is insane. I'm not even talking about that. I just mean, what's it like to spend 25, 30 years connecting the dots and seeing this slow-moving storm come toward the country that you were born in? What effect does that have on you?
Since you use the analogy of a storm, it'd be like if I was 100 years ago before they had radar, and I've read about the famous flood 120-something years ago in Galveston that killed tens of thousands of people.
Oh, yeah, the hurricane, yeah.
Yeah, the hurricane. They didn't know. They didn't have radar, and so they didn't know. But, there are the fishermen out there catching shrimp or whatever, and then all of a sudden here comes basically a tidal wave. And if I was one of those fishermen and I knew my children and my wife were on shore at school or work or whatever, and here not be thinking about myself watching this giant wave come in, I'd go, oh my God, my wife and kids are over there. And so it's not that I'm a hero. It's not even a selflessness. I realized that I was just out in front and ahead of some people in understanding this because of family and research and just, things in my life that I saw that encouraged me to get involved in the media. because I was aware of the globalists and some things that were going on because my uncle was high level Iran-Contra, had some other family that worked in clandestine things. So I kind of grew up just around folks that knew what was really going on. And you're a kid, you don't really pay attention to it, but you kind of get that education, even though you don't know you're getting it. And so I've just been out front. So I would liken it to the old folks that but they're the fishermen out there catching shrimp or whatever. And then all of a sudden, here comes basically a tidal wave. And if I was one of those fishermen and I knew my children and my wife were on shore at school or work or whatever, and here comes a 40, 50-foot wave I know is about to kill them, I would not be thinking about myself watching this giant wave come in. I'd go, oh my God, my wife and kids are over there. And so it's not that I'm a hero. It's not even a selflessness. I realized that I was just out in front and ahead of some people in understanding this because of family and research and just things in my life that I saw that encouraged me to get involved in the media because I was aware of the globalists and some things that were going on because my uncle was high-level Iran-Contra, had some other family that worked in clandestine things. So I kind of grew up just around folks that knew what was really going on. And you're a kid, you don't really pay attention to it, but you kind of get that education, even though you don't know you're getting it. And so I've just been out front. So I would liken it to the old days when a dam would break and they didn't have radio to warn people, and the dam breaks and it's 20-foot wave coming down the valley, and you are down below the dam as let's say a lumberjack, and your wife and children are 2 miles down, and you see the dam break and you're about to drown. But I guarantee the last thought you're thinking is it's going to get my women and children. And that's really my grief is this is really draconian. This globalist Great Reset, New World Order takeover is a post-industrial world, cut off the resources, 90% forced depopulation, breaking civilization by design, massive wars, famine. They've already cut off a third of the fertilizer in the last year worldwide. It's estimated that'll kill a couple 100 million people. The lockdowns worldwide, not the virus, the UN admits killed 80-something million extra people in the last 3.5 years. And so when the first world collapses, the third world dies. And then what's left of them floods us. And so the earth is being put into a countdown collapse right now. And so I'm like the fisherman when the tidal wave comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, my wife and children are about to die. And so I'm not really worried about me because I'm a man. I did this. I knew it was coming. I've been proven right. And I'm not happy I was proven right. I wish we could have gotten ahead of this and stopped it. Yeah, we have a lot of credibility now that people see that we were right, so maybe we can stop the next phase of it. But the globalists have gone from testing phase, beta test phase, into full operational now. And they say, read their writings, we are going to have a post-industrial world by 2030. We will have no personal cars by 2030. You will be eating bugs by 2030. And we will start the depopulation of 90% of the people by 2045. That is the official WF, official UN, official Club of Rome plan.
What do you mean the depopulation?
They want to bring the world population down to 500 million.
But I thought we were opposed to genocide. No or no? I guess we're not.
Well, we're told now, don't have children, it's bad for the earth. And we're told all this, and Elon Musk is right and is a hero for pointing out all the actuaries show, if you don't have 2.1 children, a man and a woman, people go, well, a man and a woman can have 2.1. It's in the aggregate, folks, out of billions. If a country doesn't have 2.1, 2.2 replacement rate, then you don't have people to take care of the old folks, society collapses. And so Japan's 1.3, Italy's 1.3, they're done as cultures. America, without immigrant influx, is about 1.6. That's not viable. And I'm not just talking about white people only here, but white people are 7% of the world population, maybe 8. And so I would be sad if the last of the Eskimos were dying. I'm sad that the Japanese, within 100 years, there might be 20 million of them.
But just to my previous question about, and without getting too personal, but I feel a little bit enervated and down just hearing your dot connecting here. What's the effect on you over 25 years? If you literally foresee 9/11 before it happens, and you did, and it can be proven, we just proved it. What's that like to live with that weird ability?
Well, I know a specific clip. I specifically say, call the White House, tell them we know they're going to let Al Qaeda attack us, Bin Laden, and then take our rights. And I said, call the White House. I put the number out, so I put my money where my mouth was, and that's the only time I ever said call the White House and tell them stop a particular event. I'm now saying we need to call the White House and say, you've let tens of thousands of military-aged men from the Middle East in. We know a lot of them are Hezbollah and Hamas. The FBI has confirmed that. And so when and if there's big terror attacks, which I believe will probably happen in America, we're not going to have Homeland Security get more funds and more power and grope us at the airports more. I want prison time for the agencies and groups that have allowed this. And I want Biden. I want Biden impeached now. Okay, that's why we got rid of McCarthy. It needs to happen. Leaving the border open when there is a clear and present danger of this going on, and when we're very close to war with Iran, we go to war with Iran, they're going to activate Hezbollah. Okay, and that they make Hamas look like choir boys. And so you want to hear a prediction here? It's a probability, not a pure prediction. But I mean, if we go to war with Iran, guaranteed sleeper cells activate. It'll make what happened in Israel look tame in comparison. I'm not lessening what happened there. So I'm simply, and then again, where's the logic? The government that allows that to happen should go to prison.
I agree.
But instead, like 9/11, they're going to get more power when it happens. Mark my words. So
you can't have guns because we let in foreign sleeper cells to kill you.
Exactly. And you asked the question. This has really taken a toll on me. Not the fake lawsuits, not the weaponization, not the deplatforming. I was already getting exhausted 5-6 years ago. And when I married my second wife, who's amazing, I have 3 children with my previous wife, and one. And when I married my second wife, who's amazing, I have 3 children with my previous wife, and one. You know, they're all great children, and one with her. We were in Hawaii getting married like 7 years ago, and I said to her, I want to just write books and make documentary films and maybe do an occasional podcast. At that time, I've been on air like 22 years, 6 days a week, 3 hours a day at least. And I said, I just don't want this burden, this big crew. I love the crew, but I don't want to do this anymore. I said, I want to move the country, and I want to just, because it's taken a physical toll to every day look at this stuff. And now I've gotten to the point, which even though I say don't let them break your will, don't let them demoralize you, that's because I understand the process. It's happened to me. Used to, I'd have hundreds of incredible stories and clips every day. I couldn't wait to expose the bad guys. Now I look at it once, I'm ready, I study it, and then half the time I get on air and I just go, let's just take calls, or I start talking about some fun story just because I mentally cannot sit there and stare into the abyss and stare at Biden or their press secretary that's meant to enrage us and demoralize us. And I think that's a defense mechanism that's healthy. So I think we all have to be balanced. I'm not asking people to only fight tyranny. I'm asking people to get prepared, get ready, but wake up as many people as you can, and then do whatever you have to stay sane, because we have record suicide, we have record depression, we have record drug abuse. This country has been attacked. And if you read deeper into the globalist writings, they admit they're doing it. And so we have to be aware of it. If you're aware of an attack and aware of a manipulation, it doesn't give you full immunity from it.
No, it doesn't.
But it gives you a buffer. Imagine people that don't know what's going on, and they really believe things are dangerous, things are bad, not because of the corrupt corporations that are running things, but because those evil people in the countryside don't want to be left alone. And that's what they're saying on the news. It's the people in the middle of nowhere that want to be left alone. They're the bad guys, and it's the 5-year-old kid that's white. They're really bad. They're all inherently really bad, and just this is a demonic assault, and it really is good versus evil. But the key part you raised earlier in previous shows that I mentioned that I didn't get into because there's so many topics is this. When you said we need to brood on death, you talk about a simpatico or a synchronicity or a weird moment. I don't usually watch your show when it first releases one day because I'm usually at work and doing stuff till night. But I'll get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, hours before my wife and daughter get up, and I will start, get on the desktop, start doing research. And when I'm reading news and sending stuff to the crew for the show, I'll almost always go click on your show to watch it. And that's the go-to thing I'll have on the background. And I said, well, I'm not going to click on the show. I'm going to click on the speech you gave a few weeks ago. And you talked about brooding on death. And I'm sitting there that week literally thinking about the fact that we've got to be humble. We've got to be thankful. We've got to realize that there's an infinite universe and consciousness, and that focusing on what made humanity, focusing on the fact that we are spiritual beings, but that this life is finite, and these incredible experiences, all the people we've met and known, and all the ancestors before us that did incredible things and went through hell and were tough as nails to get us here, really ties us into our ancestors and the epigenetic instinctive knowledge that really makes us a colony or hybrid creature of all of our ancestors. We have a soul, we have a spirit, we have our genetic imprint that they've proven mathematically is multidimensional, even above the third dimension. So we have a personal spirit, but really we also have a collective bodysuit that is a collection of all of our ancestors, and just the beauty and the wonderment and the spectacularness of that, dwelling on how incredible that is, but also leaning into eternity and leaning in to this body and this incarnation. And I'm not saying reincarnation, incarnation, but being so magical. I'm not saying reincarnation to this body and this incarnation. And I'm not saying reincarnation, incarnation, but being so magical, and that also that death is the great equalizer, and that you will be humbled and you will get old and your teeth will fall out and your hair will fall out and you will get cancer or you will have a heart attack. And no matter how powerful you are, you're not in control. In that, it tunes you into God. And then what you said, so I'm heavily focused on this and telling my wife this, and I'm meeting with my dad, who's really my mom, and I don't see them as much as I should, but my dad's really always told me this, and I didn't really get it when I was younger. Now I get it, as I get older. And I'm sitting there just literally praying that morning and drinking coffee and just focusing on death and just focusing on life, because when you focus on death, it makes life so much bigger. And focusing on what I'm not a Hindu and I'm not a Sikh, but the Sikhs are like a 500-year-old version of 3,000-year-old Hinduism. And they think everything's a manifestation of God in the universe around us, and then interfacing and how we take every moment of how magic it is what's going to resonate in the future to bring us close to God, so that we basically resonate into the higher dimension with God. And that's really been my instinctive understanding of it, spiritual understanding, the dream understanding of it, that I didn't read in books, and I read what the Sikhs are saying. It's basically, I was reading some of their writings just a month ago, and it was about focusing on death so you also understand life, and being humble and being a servant, and how that's what empowers you, so you're not an asshole. Like your dad would tell you, focus on the fact that I'm an asshole and shouldn't be. We all have the asshole side.
Yes.
You have a better quote, but of your dad's quote's
the
actually
root
better.
of all wisdom is knowing what an asshole you are.
And it really is. My dad always says the root of all thing is being humble and appreciating things and not getting on a power trip. Basically, what your dad's saying.
Yeah.
And so, because that's wise men, and so. I'm sitting there totally focused for I wouldn't call it meditation, for 30 minutes, just sitting there in the dark with the computer screen on. And I go, no, I'm not going to watch Tucker's show from yesterday. I'm going to watch this speech. And I click it, and I'm like 10 minutes in, and you go, we got to say everything I'm saying. I haven't even said this on air. I'm hearing you say basically the same thing, because it's a universal truth. Then I want to bring the next piece to it, which you talked about. You grew up in this super wealthy area of California when you weren't, spending your summers here in Maine. And speaking for you, I watch the show all the time and read your material. It's beautiful. And you were talking about how they're totally freaked out and neurotic and crazy because no one talks about death. Everybody shelves away the old people. They basically put them out on an ice float or burn them like the Vikings. And that by doing that, that's what makes them not be connected to reason and God and the deeper things. And that's why they're so lost. That's totally true. So let me now take you one step further in this. The globalists are so scared of death. They have all this money, all this power, all this control. So they're obsessed with finding life extension technology, merging with machines, becoming gods. That's their new religion. That's the transhumanism. And that's where all their funding goes. But that's only one side of the coin. The other side is that if you're going to be God, you've got to be in charge of death. So because they fear death and they project their hatred of themselves onto us, then if they can poison us, dumb us down, sterilize us, depopulate us, they believe that's more for them at a very greedy level. So they want to be death, the destroyer of worlds. To quote Oppenheimer, I become death, destroyer of worlds, and at the same time cheat death. So it's a total subconscious obsession with death. Instead of consciously focusing on it, getting over it, instead they turn it loose to their animal, lower alligator brain and are now manifesting all this because they've not embraced the higher level of understanding.
I agree with that completely, but it's doomed as a project, no? I mean, it is the Tower of Babel. Whenever you see in history is the story of this, people drunk on their own power, overstating their control over things, becoming convinced they're God, and then being destroyed. I mean, that is just, it is just an endless loop of that story.
It's a law of humans.
It's a law, exactly. So this isn't going to work. They're going to blow up the world before they do this. There's just not possible.
You just stole my thunder because we've not talked before this. We've talked about a lot of stuff, but nothing about the show really. It's a law, just like gravity, just like 2 + 2 = 4. It is the fabric of the universe. And I was about to say, in the past, megalomaniacs would try to control everything. Order the firstborn, killed. Almost every kingdom would do that, whether it was Egypt or the Druids. Oh, there's too many young men being born, kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, depopulation's always been there. In the time of Plato, 2,500 years ago, he thought the world was overpopulated. So that's kind of where the eugenics comes from and where they get these ideas. The greatest philosopher ever, who said a lot of great things, but also said there's too many Greeks. We need to kill most of them. They're animals. They're dumb. We need to control breeding and only make supermen. And that's where Hitler got all that. That's where all this comes from. But the central issue here is, in the past, civilizations would just fall apart when they got into a decadent phase. Hard men make good times. Hard men make good times. Good times make soft men. Soft men make bad times.
Exactly.
And so instead of going through that cycle and the collapse of that corrupt system, now there's biological weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, all this other advanced stuff. Instead, they're going to try to use the robots and all the control and the nuclear weapons to make us finally get under their mark of the beast, finally get under their unified system of control, finally get under their social credit score, which was predicted by these incredibly connected people 2,000 years ago, that this would be the ultimate tyranny that was coming, almost psychically seeing it into the future because of the great evil potential. Time's really a loop. It was looping back or bouncing back. Real psychics seeing into the future what was going to happen in Revelation as a potential, I believe, and it's actually a warning that we don't have to follow that course. And that's my own personal belief. So instead, whether you believe in Revelation or not, the evil globalists, the selfish globalists, are using it as a blueprint and literally building the mark of the beast cashless society, where you don't just, I agree to take this mark, I can buy and sell now. You have to worship the beast that can be seen by all on earth at the same time. It describes these big holograms you've got to watch and worship. And it tells you what to do. And it tells you how to live. And it says men become women and women become men and children are set upon their parents. And there's nothing but wickedness being invented. And it describes everything that's now happening and says when they roll this out, you've got to worship this world government. You've got to worship this system and do exactly what it says, or it doesn't let you buy and sell. And so whether people believe in the Bible or not, believe in Revelation or not, it is now manifesting.
I don't see a lie in that. I don't think, I am a Christian, but I don't think you need to be one to arrive at exactly the same conclusion. So you live in Austin, Texas. You've been there since high school. Austin's changed a lot. And as you noted, it's been really overwhelmed by people from the West Coast fleeing the decayed societies that they built. You live among liberals now. What do you make of them? What are they like?
I really feel sorry for them because compared to, say, my dad's dad,
yeah,
like you were telling me about your foreman or your manager knows how to do electricity, knows how to build houses, knows how to fish, hunt. We just saw that big moose he got today.
Yeah.
These guys are impressive, and they can do everything. My grandfather could do everything. He could fix a combine with literally rubber bands and tin cans. He cut up into pieces. And my dad's the same way. I'm a shadow of them and their can-do. And compared to liberals, I'm like light years ahead of them. They live in high rises. They get food delivered to them. They're not in reality. They don't have common sense. They go out the most dangerous areas that I wouldn't go into armed in places like New York, dangerous areas of Austin, and get stabbed, raped, murdered, killed. Then they defend the people, their families do, that killed them. They just are like pod people. They are just these obsolete creatures that most of them have, I guess, jobs because they work for big tech or the system. But they are just completely disconnected, domesticated, very, very politically ignorant, culturally ignorant, historically ignorant people. And they think they're elitist. They think they know a lot. They think they understand a lot.
They're totally useless. What do they do for fun?
Well, I was about to say, and they're the ones that want to depopulate. They're the ones that think that, like Bloomberg said, what's a farmer do? It's easy to stick a seed in the ground, it grows. Farming's incredibly hard. You better know what you're doing, and you got to have the weather on your side. And it's a all around the clock job. I've had family that are farmers. My dad grew up as a farmer and a rancher. In the summers, they would send me to work on farms and ranches. Best education I ever got. It's rough. It's tough.
But is it really essential? Is food really essential?
Well, we're told by John Kerry in the last few months, he says we need to cut farming. Now, organic farming
Is he still alive?
is
John
bad for
Kerry?
the earth. I don't think I think it's a corpse,
He seems like a corpse.
like a rubber face,
Somebody
an animatronic Chuck E. Cheese.
I thought he passed years ago, but somebody told me he's still alive. I guess it's an open question.
He runs around giving speeches saying we've got to cut farming or people are going to starve. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That's what I'm saying. Cut down trees, cut the food off, cut the fertilizer off to save people.
Well, speaking of starving, I mean, again, as I said at the outset, and I meant this, I've never seen a single person, I don't think there ever has been a person in the history of the United States who was not criminally charged, but was punished to the extent that you have been. I mean, they've really tried to drive you into the grave.
I think, to be fair, it's been worse for Trump, but I'm the second.
Yeah, that might be right. He has much bigger resources, though, to back him up.
Oh, absolutely.
He's the head of a political party.
I've spent everything. I'm completely out of money. I'm still hanging on. But yeah, Trump still has resources. I don't. I mean, they lied about my resources too. Said I had all this resources. Now it's been proven it wasn't true. So yeah, they've definitely.
But it was more than $1 billion judgment against you for saying something other people didn't like, I guess.
Well, let's be clear. Misrepresenting what I said, I was defaulted by both judges in Texas and Connecticut. And the judge said I was guilty, then wouldn't let us put on a defense and had a jury decide the damages. Then they put on experts saying I was worth $400 million when I had a couple $1 million last year in my account during the last trial. Now I have nothing. I'm actually upside down right now. And so that's.
So how are you? I mean, they've decided like you're not allowed to make a living in this country. You've been not just deplatformed, but depersoned, debanked. How do you make a living?
Well, I have been maxed out personally. I'm in bankruptcy, but I've done a Chapter 11, Subchapter 5 reorganization for Free Speech Systems. That is the company that owns InfoWars, and so that company's barely paying its bills and is operating, but we're barely hanging on. I personally never had that much stuff, contrary to what they said, so it really hasn't hurt me that much. I'm not really into fancy things or a bunch of ostentatious lifestyle, contrary to what they've said. And so we're funding the operation. We're selling products.
What are you selling?
We sell books, films, T-shirts. We sell high-quality supplements. Then they call it snake oil, but we sell the same stuff private labeled that Whole Foods sells, just high-end, high-quality stuff. It's not just a fundraiser. I've got the book, The Great Awakening, Defeating the Globalist, and Launching the Next Great Renaissance. My last book that came out last year was a #1 bestseller on the USA Today and Wall Street Journal, but
did they list it on their list?
Well, the New York Times, they did. New York Times refused to even put it on the list, even though it was #1. This is my new book that isn't just the bad stuff they're doing with a huge breakdown with all the proof at the back. It is also solutions and how to counter them. So this book will keep us on air. Plus, it's a great book. I hope people get it at InfoWarsStore.com, or they can also get signed copies there, or they can go to Amazon.com. But yeah, this is a way to keep us on air. Plus, it really is an amazing book. If people want to see a lot of the stuff I told you, but with footnotes, so you can go right to it, everything I say. When I say Naval Noah Harari says the future's not human, and that the population is no longer needed, and the future's, there'll be no more humans, you can actually go to where he said it. When I said that Jeffrey Epstein was running a Mossad/CIA MI6 operation to blackmail top scientists to control them, we have links to that. When I say Peter Nygaard, that's on trial right now, was having women have babies, his babies, so they could abort them at 8 months, and then he could suck all their juices out and inject them into himself, a real vampire that literally takes the juices of his children, puts them in his body. We have a transcript of him saying that on TV.
Who is this?
Peter Nygaard is one of the big buddies of Epstein and all them. He was kind of running his own Jeffrey Epstein operation, also in the Caribbean. So this book is super, super hardcore. It's got an amazing foreword by Steve Bannon, and they had a great researcher, who's also a lawyer, Kent Heckenlively, went through and double-checked everything I said for the book, obviously, so they wouldn't get sued. So this thing is well-researched, well-documented. It is the Great Awakening, because the Great Awakening is the counter to the globalist Great Reset, to destroy society and then build back better.
But it seems asymmetrical at best. I mean, you have all the power on the globe arrayed on one side, and then the majority that doesn't like it. So, how do decent people prevail?
They believe they can push it by deception. That's why people are aware of why they're cutting off the fertilizer to collapse the third world, to then flood us with those giant populations they will then control and give voting rights to. And if you don't want to give them voting rights, then you're a racist. See, that's why the lockdown's biggest crime wasn't just the 80 plus million the UN estimates starved to death the last 3.5 years, on top of the normal 15 million they starve to death each year. You look this up. They then use those giant masses of people that are fleeing total collapse as their new political underclass. So that's why it's so vital to not just challenge the Great Reset and the New World Order eugenics operation of the transhumanists. It's vital to then give an alternative plan and have an alternative debate about that plan. And that's what the Great Awakening gets into.
So, but if you give up on that, you also sell bourbon.
Man, you are really being nice here today, Tucker. And
well, you know why? I hate selling products, but I like this product because I love the name.
Look at this right here. This, my friends, is a gift to your crew, because I know they drink. I had some drinks with them last night when we called Brian Stelter. But
some of the crew does drink. Yes, that's true.
So this is for you. We got a few other bottles for you out there. Suddenly I can't even open this thing. This thing was sealed. Maybe it got locked on the airplane. Anyways, can somebody open this? I'm like here embarrassing.
No, hold on. I think the center thing. I don't travel with guns very often, so I don't know how to operate these.
I'm gonna smash this son of a bitch out.
Watch yourself.
There we go. Son of a bitch. All right, goddammit. Look at that. It doesn't come like this in stores. I'm gonna kill the people that come up with this.
Swap that into the studio. We're rolling.
Tucker, don't kill me.
All right, we're rolling.
I don't think that plug should be that. Oh my God. I got a lot of points when you get to her.
Okay, that was amazing. This whiskey does not come with a hatchet to open it, or a black light. But does it come with a black light?
No, but if you have one.
But if you have a black light, by the way, I don't think I've ever sold a product on the air, but I'm proud to say
we
this.
appreciate you supporting us.
Dude, come on, I'm totally all about it. What does that say? I'm going to let you read that.
It says, thus to tyrants, meaning death to tyrants.
Yeah. I recognize that phrase. I think it was uttered in Ford's Theater.
Thank you, brother. Well, enough of that. I didn't mean to turn it to Who's Extravaganza.
So I want to...
The book is more important, but...
Anyways. So the last topic I want to hit with you, I could go on for hours. We're trying to get the audience of this social media app to believe that you can have longer content, because it was, originally designed for very short, brain droppings. But
well, I think you've succeeded. The biggest English-speaking show ever. I mean, it's bigger than Jimmy Carson, bigger than Joe Rogan. Congratulations, showing that freedom is successful and popular.
Thank you. Well, we're grateful that it's a...
No, I'm grateful to you. You keep saying
we have free speech. But here's my question. So all of the trends that you describe, I think very credibly, and I'm a little bit surprised, but not at all ashamed to say I agree with pretty much everything that you've said, amazingly, but I do. And I think most reasonable people, if they just drop the kind of filter and stop lying to themselves and ask, like, where's the lie and what he's saying, I think would come to the same conclusion. But all of those trends are being forced to kind of ahead, or they're going to come to fruition, or something's going to happen in the next 13 months, because we have a presidential election on the books, and you have this car crash. I just do not see how it's resolved. Do you? Like, what's going to happen?
Again, it's the truth. Really, the only show I watch every day is yours when you have a new show, because I don't just agree with you. I learn stuff every time. And what you've been saying the last few months is dead on, and a lot of people agree with you, and I know I do, that you look at the trajectory of this, how they're escalating on Trump, whether you love him or hate him. He's now a populist icon. He's now the underdog. The globalists are coming after him. They're coming after our right to vote for who we want. He gets 60% against...
Which is the fundamental right in a democracy. The people rule. I can vote for whomever I want. And if you don't like that person, that's immaterial.
Absolutely.
Right?
And he's been indicted for saying they're stealing elections. They're stealing it trying...
Oh, I'm aware.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
In their indictments of him is
Absolutely.
election theft, but yes.
But despite that, he's got 60% against all other Republicans. He's 15, 20 points ahead of Biden. It's backfired, but the deep state's not going to stop. So when you said to Trump several times in that 400 million views or whatever you got, biggest show ever, you said to him, well, isn't the next thing them trying to kill you? And he's so confident, he doesn't want to think about that. And
he doesn't want to think about it.
Whereas I admire someone that's that confident. The deep state does kill people. And that's their only next move, because this is failing. And I think they're going to kill Biden too, or I think they're going to try to, what you said in the speech again before the last one I talked about like a month ago, you said, I don't see Biden and Trump being the candidates. You see the system, the media going after Biden, and he deserves it, but they were covering it up until now. Now they're covering the laptop. Now they're covering attack on the dog. Now they're covering, all of his senility, all the corruption, the Chinese spies.
Attacking a dog. What a pig he is. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I was told that by Secret Service and by people that, let's just say, work with them. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I actually have a contact for you. I'd like to be able to hear it from them. But when this is over, I'll let you actually hear it from yourself. I think they'll tell you off record. I think they're willing to talk to you. But yeah, he is completely out of his mind. He wanders around for the entire 2.5 years. It's getting worse. Naked in the White House. In the middle of the night, doesn't know who he is. They have to give him a bunch of drugs, a bunch of amphetamines in the morning. Then they've got to drug him at night. Sometimes he's got to, though, he'll like be out for the morning for a while, and then comes back out at night for a ball. That's when there's a real problem.
He is on drugs. I have established that, and I know someone who witnessed it. I'm not guessing at this. I know someone personally who witnessed him taking amphetamines. And this was during the 2020 election.
So how's this going to? That's huge. I know you don't play games. You've been proven.
No, I don't play games with this. I'll just say he's a makeup artist.
Well, no, you said the NSA spying on me, high level, and then a month later they went, yes, we're spying on Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I know.
So you don't make stuff up. And so what I'm saying here is Biden's a liability for him. Trump's a liability. What do? They have a right-winger, they'll claim, assassinate Biden, and they'll have a left-winger assassinate Trump. That then gets the country even in more of a fight against each other. And then they put in Gavin Newsom and, somebody like Mike Pence or who knows. But I really think the next 13 months is the most critical time, not just in American history, but world history. Because if they can bring down America, they're going to bring down the world. And then you've got the escalation. Remember a year ago, Biden said, you can't give F-16s and Abrams tanks and cruise missiles to the Ukrainians. That's World War III. Now they're doing it. So as Russia wins that war, as Colonel McGregor documented a few months ago with you, NATO is escalating. Well, that leads right to nuclear war. So we're so close. That fundamentally makes me so mad. This transcends politics. Since when do Democrats love war? Since when do Democrats love the intelligence agencies? They love them now. And so really the Democratic,
so dark.
Just like the Republican Party is a beachhead for sanity and populism. It's not perfect, but it's a beachhead. The Democratic Party is totally turned over to evil. That's why I thought RFK Jr. was so refreshing, but they're shutting him out of the primary process. They're blocking him. And so now he's going to run third party, which will take away from Trump. Most experts agree. I know Trump's people have looked at it. They think so.
Of course.
So that's very, very sad.
So do you think, normally at this, so we're in October, I guess, in the year before the election, you can sort of see the outlines pretty clear. In October of 1999, I was pretty confident it was going to be George W. Bush versus Al Gore. You sort of know ahead of time. But do you think that we're going to see on Election Day 2024 a ballot with Biden and Trump on it?
I've been saying I think they may assassinate him or claim they had a heart attack. But I was thinking about each one individually. But I think when you said that a month ago, it was prescient. That's the next move. If I get in their mind and I'm evil, I'm Machiavelli, that is what they have to do.
But the election just forces the point. I guess I actually don't think that their preference is overt violence or anything that people notice. They much rather resort to stealth, right? Covert rather than overt. But I just think, there's an election on the books and something's going to happen.
Well, that's what you're saying. All their tactics of covert aren't working. So as we saw with JFK in 1963 in Dallas, they will go over. And so we have governors declaring emergencies to take the guns. All of that is, and suddenly Democrats are against sanctuary cities when they're the ones saying, Governor Hochul and the mayor of New York, come here. Now they're like, oh, we never said come here. I think it's dawning on Democrats they've been betrayed. And maybe there's some point where Democrats will have self-preservation, the average voter, and say, no, we need to turn against this. This is totalitarian. This is dangerous. This is evil. But if that isn't the case, but here's the problem. Even if Democrats wake up, the system will know that from their internal polls. The establishment will, and they're going to make a big move. And is that a full-out war with Russia? A full-out war with China? Is it them allowing the jihadi sleeper cells? They're in America that have torn across our border, that are waiting to let them activate. And I'm not saying our government controls them, but they've let other governments bring them in. And they've given funding to those governments. And now if we don't see strong signals against Iran, I don't want war with Iran. What I'm saying is strong signals telling Iran, do not fund terror groups, and we don't see strong repudiation of Joe Biden, that will greenlight the security services to go ahead and let this new attack happen. And a massive jihadi attack in America could be the way to bring in martial law and cancel the election. Also, Klaus Schwab loves the Telegraph, so does the UN. It is imminent. A cyber attack bringing down the power grid will make COVID look like absolutely nothing, is basically his quote. I think I've got it almost exactly. And so will they cut the power before the election? I mean, the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. So people need to be vigilant and understand that we want to let the system know we're aware. We want to promote the values of free speech and of family and of self-defense and of local control and of free market, rugged individualism and a competitive civilization and a colorblind society that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about. We need to go back to the things that made us great, that threaten the CCP and threaten the globalists of the UN, because they're selling tyranny and eating bugs and being locked down in your houses and forced injections and 2 men can have a baby. We're selling normal human biology and success and culture. And so I just think we have to give the alternate plan to their dystopia. We have to challenge their dystopia, but also give the alternate plan, which enough people aren't doing. But that's Trump's big sin, is his optimism. America's great. Everybody's beautiful. We have such potential. And as soon as the world heard America was open for business, we saw trillions flood instantly in, because our leaders had said America's not open for business. Invest in China and India and Mexico, where the globalists have middleman deals to get all the money and all the power, instead of the people getting it. It was Henry Ford, wasn't a perfect guy, but he said the other auto manufacturers, this came out in federal documents and later antitrust suits, because he didn't get in trouble, they did. They said to him, the other auto manufacturers, they said, why are you going to pay your employees 3 times what we do? And he said, because I don't want just rich people buying my cars. I want my employees to prime the market to buy it. They'll give me all the money back buying the Model T, and then that'll supercharge it. So that's the 2 different systems. Build this illustrious, incredibly exciting, roaring civilization of laissez-faire, or let these big guys that already made all the money centralize control, shut us all down and vertically integrate so they're in control, and then kill competition. So we have to kill the globalist program that's anti-free market, anti-capitalist. It's monopolistic. It's anti-human. It's a bunch of degenerate, inbred, 3rd, 4th generation elites who didn't make all this money, who didn't create all this stuff, but that have decided we don't even get to take part in it, while they take part in it and live like kings. So it's us or them, Tucker, and we've got to crush the globalists. We've got to crush the New World Order. We've got to challenge them, or they're going to destroy the planet.
I believe that. Last question. Where will you be in 5 years? Are you going to stay in this country? Can you stay in this country? I mean, speaking of escalation, again, I still have never figured out what your crime is, but you have been persecuted for something in an escalating way.
I got 2 subpoenas last week.
Subpoenas?
I got subpoenas on January 6th, again, on a criminal investigation.
Well, you didn't do anything on January 6th.
And I got subpoenaed in Trump's criminal trial in Georgia.
On what ground? On what?
And then my lawyer called and said, what is this? And they said, well, we don't just want him as a witness, he's a subject. I had nothing to do with Georgia. But I'm not saying it's bad they went and challenged it, that's their right. I mean, I went and protested there. So it's just pure intimidation. So I have a problem. It's that I don't like to cut and run. I'm not the toughest guy around, but growing up in Dallas was some pretty rough people. Some big guy started a fight with me. I just couldn't back off. And I almost always won those fights or went to the hospital trying. And so I decided to go down with the ship. I'm not going to leave the country. I'm not going to back down. And I'm going to continue to fight with everything I've got. I'll never sell out. I'll never give in. I could give out. That's why support's critical and word of mouth, because Alex Jones is seen as a focal point, like capture the flag by the globalists. If they can shut me down, they believe they can shut anybody down. They've said that. And so it's human intelligence and human action and word of mouth. Talking about Infowars.com, my show, what I do, is a test case, almost like Stalingrad in World War II, where all these forces of the globalists keep thinking, we beat this guy at this city, at this point, at this battle, we win. And so I don't think I'm even that important. I've just been chosen as this main battle point. So all these grassroots people and people like you and other great folks are supporting me through just supporting the First Amendment, and so I've got that backing, and that enrages the globalists. So the more they throw against me, the more support I get, and it's really become a historic battle. If I'm completely banned and debanked and shut down and can't operate, only then would I try to evacuate somewhere to try to keep my show on the air. But I've looked at it, and I don't even think that that's the case. Once they disrupt and shut down something, it's very hard to restart it. The good news is there are so many other great talk show hosts, so many other great people that now understand this and even have perspectives better than mine, that I'm not obsolete yet. But thanks to you and thanks to Russell Brand, they're trying to now set up, and Joe Rogan's come a long way, and Steve Bannon and countless other shows that I tune into that have high level understanding and teach me a lot. And my head's in the game. So you're our champion, Tucker. And there are other people, lesser. I know you don't want to be the top dog, but you are. That's why you're under attack. Thanks to you, I know no matter what happens to me, men and women are going to continue the fight forward into the future. But this is an Alamo situation. I'm not evacuating. I'm not leaving. I'm not going.
How'd they do at the Alamo? Do you remember?
Everybody got killed.
Oh, okay.
But that example led to a big, my mom's family raised Colonel Travis's son. And on my dad's side, too, they were heavily involved. First Texas families, we have like Mexican land grants for our property. We still have Mexican land we paid for, 12 cents an acre, like 1825 in East Texas. You come visit. So it's not as cool as your place, but it's pretty cool. And the last letter he wrote on that piece of wallpaper was to one of my great grandfathers in Gonzales, Texas, saying, please take care of my little boy. But Travis knew he was going to die. But he was like, I got 10,000 troops coming in on our 200 and something. We're going to give them one hell of a fight and kill a bunch of them before they can get up north for the main battle. And they killed thousands, 3,000 was estimated, we go from memory, Mexican troops. And so that'd be an honor to have like 10,000 troops coming at me and I'm in the Alamo. I don't have a death wish, but man, it gets me high as a kite. and so I'm not doing what Colonel Travis did. The only reason they got beat is they ran out of ammo, basically. They had powder, but no more ball. And they were fighting with swords at the end. So those are tough men, and I don't even measure up to them, but I want to try to measure up. And so it's very exciting. It's instinctive. It's spiritual to be defending humanity and prosperity and freedom and justice against these globalist child trafficking monsters, the open border, all this evil. I mean, so my cells tell me to do this. My guts, my sinews say you're ordered to do this, and I don't feel good unless I do it. And so the bigger the attacks get, it's the old World War II saying, when the planes were over the target, they didn't really have radar, but they knew the bases and the factories had flak. So they're shooting at them with artillery, anti-aircraft artillery. So you flew into that. And so the best place I want to be is in the flak. But I also hate the flak because we could blow up and we're not in the fight anymore. So there's that paradox. But 90% of me wants to be in the flak. 10% says maybe you should steer a little around it because you don't want to get knocked out. And until just a few years ago, I felt really bad because it didn't seem the paradigm had been shattered and people didn't actually read the globalist documents. Now there's been a paradigm shattering and I'm almost obsolete, Tucker. And as soon as that happens, as soon as I see another couple hundred more prominent people that actually know what's going on, we've already reached chain reaction point, I'm going to hang it up and disappear like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Alex Jones. Thank you. What a great conversation.
Thank you, brother.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your courage, Tucker.
Thank you.
Love your crew. Great energy.
Thank you.
Americana, baby.
Alex Jones.
You'll hear people say the news is full of lies. And Kennedy's
motor. Yeah, I don't want my face is so itchy, but it is. And I'm tired and I'm hungry. So thank you for joining me. And that's about it. This stream is top heavy, but you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. So thank you very much. I'll see you all sometime in the future, hopefully the near future, nearer rather than later. So, bye.